What? She's on mute. Are you guys muted? Maybe I can unmute them. I might be able to do it over here. Here, I'm going to unmute him. I'm going to unmute him right now. I see how to do it. I think.
Can you hear me okay?
The mayor's unmuted now, so we'll do roll call.
Chairman Foster, I apologize. We needed to wait just a moment. Agnell needed to let Aaron know to start the streaming, and we also need to start the recording. So just one moment, please. Are we good to go? Okay.
Mayor, those are both started, so we're good to go.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks, Aaron. Chairman, we are ready to go. It's all yours, sir.
I just asked for the roll call then. I've already announced, well, you haven't started the tape. I'll do it again. It's Public Service Committee meeting of Tuesday, October the 27th. Starting the meeting at 6:04 and ask the clerk to make the roll call.
Alderman Sharon McMahon.
Here.
Brenda Brown.
Present.
RJ Davis. Dan Duncan. James Bouchard.
Here.
Tom Stone.
Here.
Chairman Steve Foster.
Present.
5 present.
We just do have a quorum, but we may get, I know Mike's around, but he's only a listener. So this is a public service meeting, so we only need 5. You have the minutes. Did we go ahead and approve the minutes from the last meeting? We have a motion.
Move to approve.
Stone moves.
All in
Stone
favor indicate.
seconds.
Stone second, all right. All in favor to approve the minutes, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
No, the other sign, nay. Okay, got the minutes. Let's go to the agenda. Are there any changes or amendments on the agenda at all? If not, we'll appreciate a motion for the approval.
Approve.
Okay, it's been moved by, who's got?
Second. Brown.
Mr. Brown, okay. Moving right on. Oh, well, let's have a
Just a voice
Motion.
vote, Chairman.
yeah, it's a voice vote, yeah. It's been a while since they've done this. Ricky took it
I
away
know.
from me for a year.
Yes.
I feel like Biden. Who am I? What day is this? And it's just Champaign City Council, isn't it? All right, now, so let's have a voice or approval for the agenda. I need some ayes, please. All in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
right. Any objection? All right, agenda's approved. We'll go to audience comments. Did you get any comments?
No, Chairman, I did not.
Okay, and Mary, you don't have anything in your pocket? Okay,
No, Chairman, not at this time.
all right. I don't have any comments at this time. You have your payroll before you. I need a motion for the approval.
Stone move to approve. Bouchard second.
All right, it's been moved to second. Any question on the payroll? If not, roll call vote, please.
Alderman Bouchard.
Present.
Stone.
Yes.
McMahon.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Davis. Duncan. Foster.
Yes.
5 present. I'm sorry, 5 yes.
5, yeah. Boy, that was a close call there,
It was.
because I can't break ties. City clerk's report. Lisa, can you go ahead, please?
Have we done the vouchers payable, Chairman?
Oh, no, I checked it, but we haven't done it yet. All right, you had the approval for them before. I'd like to have a motion to approve, and then we'll just a motion to approve the vouchers payable. I need a
I'll
second.
move to approve the vouchers. Second.
Moved and seconded. So are there any questions on the vouchers now?
I have a question, Chairman.
Okay, go ahead.
On, what page is that? That's on the page 3 of 7. And that's under the animal collection activity. And I notice again, that's 8,000. That's, to me, seems a lot of money when it says just animal collection activity. So is it that much in the city animal collection that it's almost $9,000?
That is correct. We receive a monthly invoice from the Vermilion County Animal Regulation. They also provide us a list of all services that they provide to the city. It usually bounces between $8,000 and $10,000 every month.
Okay, I know we had a
say that's lower.
Could we see a breakdown as far as exactly what the charge is? I know we do it, but I still would like to see that, just do they just go and pick up the animal, or do they have to put it to sleep, or what's all included in this?
Sure. They provide a variety of services to us. I'll go ahead and send a copy of this exact payment, the invoice and the summary to all the aldermen, just so you can reference that and see kind of what it looks like on an average month.
Okay, yeah, nothing that I doubt. I just would like to see the cost on exactly what they're doing for the cost. So that's
Sure.
all. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, Ms. Massey. Anyone else? Any questions on the payables? If not, call for a voice vote.
Be a roll call vote, Chairman.
Pardon? Yeah, I want you to call it.
Alderman Stone,
Yes.
McMahon,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Davis, Duncan, Bouchard,
Yes.
Foster,
Yes.
5 yes.
5 yes, motion carries. Okay, city clerk's report. Looks like we're probably going to get to you there, Lisa.
Yes. We'll need a motion and second for the ordinance, Chairman.
Okay, there is an ordinance to vote on, so we're going to enact porting supplement to the S56 to the Code of Ordinances. So let's move for its approval first, and then she can explain it. I need a motion for its approval.
Stone moves.
I need a second.
Second.
All right.
Yes, Chairman, this is basically what we do every time we have a supplement to the Code of Ordinances. We've already received the supplement in hard copy form as well as on the city website. So this is just a formality that we have to do in order to approve the most recent code.
Yeah, actually, it's a service too. They can go online and look at all these things.
Correct.
All right. Thank you very much, then. Is there any other questions on the ordinance? Yes. Go ahead. Whoever spoke. Somebody wanted to be recognized. Oh,
I think it was just the clerk, Chairman.
oh, that's okay. If not, we don't, I guess the only thing left is the items information. We already voted on it, didn't we?
We'll have to do a roll call, Chairman.
I thought you did.
Not on this ordinance.
I got to quit checking them before it's called. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Alderman McMahon,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Davis, Duncan, Bouchard,
Yes.
Stone,
Yes.
Foster,
Yes.
5 yes.
5 yes, motion carries. Now, you have any items information there, Madam Clerk?
No, sir, I do not.
No, you don't. All right. Let's go over to finance. Money lady can make her report, and we'll start with the first resolution. If you look down there, they're all for health insurance up through, it's a city, up through E, and I recommend we take A and E together. Without the necessary reading and all of that. So do you have a motion to take A through E together? Someone want to make that motion?
So move.
Stone would second that.
Okay, are there any questions on A, B, C, D, or E? And I'll read the resolutions for anybody that might be risky. A is an authorization for an agreement for the health insurance in general. B is a resolution authorizing spousal incentive to lower monthly health insurance premiums. C is a resolution, it's an agreement, authorizing agreement for health insurance for Medicare Part B eligible retirees. D is authorizing an agreement for voluntary dental insurance. E is authorizing agreement for group and term voluntary life insurance, all of which are standing. And this is nothing new on here, but are there any questions for any of the aldermen on A, B, C, D, or E, F?
Yes, I had a question if I could.
Sharon?
Yes. On the spousal incentive, that's a one-time thing, right? So once they get that incentive, they're out of our program for good. They don't have to do that every year and opt out. Is that correct?
No, they have to fill out the application every year so that we can make sure that they're meeting all of the qualifications. But that is something that they're offered every year, so that way their spouse remains on their employer plan, or the dependents remain on an employer plan other than our plan, because it's their utilization and it's their utilization that is kind of bringing up our costs besides the premium. But they are allowed to get it every year as long as they qualify.
So let's say I opt to have my husband on his own insurance and you're going to give me an incentive for that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so next year he's still on his own insurance, right? I don't have to opt him out and get another incentive, right? You only get one incentive, right?
No, you can get it every year. As long as they meet the qualification that they remain on their employer plan, then you can actually get the incentive each year that you qualify.
And how much is that incentive that they get?
If it is for a spouse that goes to their employer plan, it's $2,000. If that spouse takes their dependents that qualify, then it's $2,500. Otherwise, if it's dependents that are under the age of 18 or still in high school, then and they're on the mother's employer's plan, then that employee would receive $2,000.
And that saves, and how much money does that save us?
Around $900,000 a year.
Okay.
It just gets better and better. Just for the record, Alderman McMahon, that was a hypothetical question. Your husband's not going to get any advantage because you're an alderman, right?
Oh, no. No.
Oh, you'd be surprised. But,
I have
but
my own insurance and he has his own insurance.
Yeah, but Facebook tomorrow will say Sharon McMahon's getting a big discount check.
Yeah, no, that was a hypothetical.
It's a hypothetical, yes.
We're
Thank
not
you
on
very
the
much.
city's insurance.
Thank you. Oh, too much Facebook, huh? So let's get a roll call on that. I didn't forget it because I didn't check it.
Alderman Brown,
Yes.
Davis, Duncan, Bouchard,
Yes.
Stone,
Yes.
Mann,
Yes.
Foster,
Yes.
5 yes.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. Item F is a resolution authorizing an agreement for an extension with the flexible spending program. I like the way it's reading and ask for its motion for the approval. Actually, I can make the motion. I'd just get a second.
Well, I'll second it for you.
Okay, that's
Stone.
the best way to do it. It's been almost a year, but it's coming back. So if it's moved to second, are there any questions on authorizing this agreement on this program? Okay, if not, that would probably be a roll call, right?
Yes. Alderman Bouchard,
Yes.
Stone,
Yes.
McMahon,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Davis, Duncan, Foster,
Yes.
5 yes.
All right, 5 yes, motion carries. Item G is a resolution authorizing an agreement for liability and workman's compensation insurance. And I move to waive that reading and for its approval. Need a second?
Second.
It's been moved to second. Any questions on this agreement, the liability insurance? Okay, if not, I'll take another roll call. I'm sorry, I could have put G in there with the rest, but I didn't read far enough. Go ahead, Mayor.
Alderman Stone,
Yes.
McMahon,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Davis, Junction, Bouchard,
Yes.
Foster,
Yes,
5 yes.
5 yes, carries. And H is items of information, so we'll start with the risk manager's monthly report.
I actually have not been able to do the monthly report this month with trying to get the website up and going for our benefits and open enrollment, besides the resolutions and the renewals for all of the different insurances. And then, of course, the FMLA extended leave through the CARES Act has been quite time consuming. So I've not been able to do that this month.
That's okay. You did all this other work on here we just voted on. So are there any questions for the risk manager though, while we have her attention? Okay, if not, we'll go to item 2, which is the monthly report from personnel. Who's doing that? Oh, Jamie, you're here.
Yes, I'm here, so I will do that for you. So if you can see from your report that we currently have 237 employees eligible for benefits. We have 27 part-time seasonal employees for a total of 264 employees right now. We had one net change last month. We did have 3 new hires, a firefighter, a utility worker at the Mass Transit Department, and an extra board driver. However, we also had 3 separations, 2 firefighters, and an extra board driver. But we also had an auxiliary part-time employee move to a full-time position, which increased our total employees to 237. We have open positions of an extra board drivers, engineers, maintenance and facilities supervisor at the Mass Transit Department, and a plumbing mechanical inspector. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the personnel or for the monthly report? If not, looks like we're in good shape, and at least we have jobs open for people.
Yes, we do.
That's good. So there's no further question. We'll move on. Does anybody have additional item information? For example, Ashley, do you have any, or it's your report, finance?
It's hard to summarize everything finance has been working on since the last time public services met. So I'll just keep to the cliff notes. Of course, finance. Kathy and Jamie are being very humble. They've been working on a lot in addition to their regular duties, namely that O&I employee navigator, which is going to be an online-based open enrollment this year, which will be very nice for the employees, and it has significant savings in relations to paper. We normally go through multiple cases of paper, and this year it'll be completely web-based. We've also been working on facilitating the Family First Coronavirus Response Act and all the additional mandates with that. Kathy and Jamie have been very busy working and tracking the time for anyone who has been off. That way, if we have the chance for reimbursement, we could claim that, which, you know, they were doing a lot of the work up front before any of the guidance was rolled out by DCEO. So they went the extra steps to maintain those records just in case we needed them, and we ended up needing them. So thank you to both of them for that. We've also been working on the CURES distribution here in finance. So that $1.3 million allotment that was CARES Act money that was sent to the state, that is now the CURES local distribution program. We've been collecting all of the AP information to submit reimbursements to get some of our COVID-related expenses recuperated. Of course, budget and levy preparation, which you've all been involved with that, so you know that that's going on. The audit should be wrapping up here in the next couple weeks. Clifton Larson is tentatively scheduled to come see council November 17th. So hopefully they'll be done by then and can come give you a presentation of our financial statements. Where also the actuary analysis has been completed. Final drafts have been distributed. Lauterbach and Alman is scheduled to come next week, November 3rd, to give a presentation to you on the pensions. And of course, in addition to that, all of our regularly scheduled duties like accounts payable and payroll and recording of receipts. So and any other maintenance of our financial records. So those are some of the highlights from finance.
Okay, well, the question is, have you been busy?
Not at all.
I didn't think so. And Kat, she has another chance. We'll talk a little bit about the levy later on tonight and the budget. So if anyone have any questions though for Ms. Massey while she's here? If not, let's move on then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Fire, Don McMaster, Chief, are you there? Some item information and do you have an incident report too?
Month of September, we had 263 incidents, 6 of which were building fires, structural fires, which is about par for the course average. Normal is about 5 to 6, sometimes 7 fires a month, for a total loss of about $45,000. Since it's been a while since we've been here, done this, I also pulled up the numbers from August. August numbers were 316 incidents. August was a busy month with 316 incidents, 13 of which were building fires, as we've talked about over and over, and the overtime that went with that. Month of July, we had 289 incidents, 5 of which were fires. So the rest of the months have been about the norm on the fires. We've been busy with new hires as well as new rehires and resignations and new hires. On top of everything else, the 2 new hires that are in the academy over in Champaign at the Fire Service Institute, a week ago Thursday, were sent home at the end of the day and said, everybody go home for 2 weeks because they had an instructor that was teaching the class that was marked positive for COVID. And so they sent them all home. And so that, of course, backed up Academy 2 more weeks, which changed the Academy's graduation to November 13th, tentatively, subject to change again. They're supposed to go back to the Academy on Monday. And in the meanwhile, they've actually had the students doing a lot of their classroom type work via Zoom meeting online, so that when they do go back to the Academy, they can focus solely on all the practical stuff they need to have. They've got multiple burns to do, LP tank burns, LP fire burns, as well as a couple more night burns. And then they will graduate, assuming they don't get sent home again, they will graduate the 13th of November. And it is likely, based on a meeting I had this morning with the Institute, is likely going to be a virtual graduation, video streamed, so we will not be able to attend. My other new hire, who's in an academy in a different town up in Romeoville, Illinois, as of right now, and I say this very carefully, academy is going well up there. They've had one near scare on a COVID case, but not enough to warrant sending everybody home. So he is scheduled to graduate the 4th of December. And again, I've not heard from them yet whether or not graduation will be virtual or will be able to be in person. So we may be going up to Romeoville for graduation. Some of the other things that coincide with that, which all of you are aware, that we have been planning for some time to burn a couple of the structures, the old vacant structures of the cities. They've been planning the works for a while to do that, to save the city on the expenses of tearing them down. One of which was supposed to have been burnt down last week. A week ago today was supposed to have been burnt down by the academy and the academy students. So they were going to bring all 39 students over to Danville to do training in the house and then burn it down at the end of the day, which was going to save the city even more money because they were going to have the students for free burn it down for us, as opposed to us paying overtime to burn it down. That, of course, got backed up because they shut everything down. That is tentatively rescheduled for the 10th of November for the academy class to come over here, and they'll start about 7 o'clock in the morning. They'll train in it all morning, and then after lunch, probably they will light it until it burns down, assuming weather cooperates. So that will take care of one of our structures. Another structure that we are going to tear down, which is on Kimball Street in the 200 block of Kimball Street. We are planning on using that structure. That structure is not very sound, so we are doing no interior work with it as far as training out of the building. We are going to do elevated roof ventilation training with our aerial ladders on that structure the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of November. And then once we're done and on the 5th of November doing the training, we will light it and it will be burnt down. The bigger one that is more of a, if you will, to make sure that I let everyone, all of you know about 845 East Madison Street on the 6th of November. That building is going to be, we are going to start working on getting that building ready to be burnt down. And with that, we are planning on doing an improvised smaller version of a Fire Ops 101 class out of that structure for any alderman, any media. Obviously, media we will not put in the building, but any media that want to attend and get news coverage of it, as well as any alderman that would wish to attend to do a Fire Ops 101, where we will dress you out in full gear, take you inside the building, do a little very, very small and brief fire behavior course, just like those of you who have been over to the Institute have done in the past, while we were doing some other setups for that structure, and get you a chance to come inside and see what fire does before we do some other trainings in that afternoon and then burn it down. That is November 6th, which I believe is a Friday. That'll start at 9 o'clock in the morning. All aldermen are invited to attend if anyone want to, as well as we've had several of the police and fire board members that have expressed interest in coming to that as well. So we are going to let them know about it. If you have any interest in coming to see that, and you can come just to watch from an exterior, we'll try to get you as much vision as we can of what's going on from the exterior. If you do not want to dress out and put an air pack on and go inside, if you do want to go inside, please let us know ahead of time, and we will meet with you. We'll bring you out to the fire station, get you fitted for gear and air pack masks and everything, so you're ready to go for that. The intention for that house is we will do a fire ops, fire behavior burn in one of the rooms in the building starting at 9 o'clock that morning. And then once we've completed the fire ops work, we are actually setting up 3 different rooms in the structure. And us heads of the investigations team, fire investigations team, are going to set up each of the 3 different rooms with different means that we are going to use to set fires in that room. And we will let them burn for a while, and then we will extinguish the fires. And then we are going to, for training purposes, have all of our other fire investigators come in and work the structure just as if they were investigating a fire. So they go through all the steps they have to do to investigate and find the seat of the fire. Once they've investigated it, and we ourselves doing all this, once they've investigated, then we will take them back to the fire station, and we'll show them the videos of what we actually did to set the fire, to see how close they were to the determination for the cause. But that'll all be involved in that building. That's one of the more structurally sound buildings that we could do work in. So we're going to utilize that for fire investigations training before we burn it down. Again, that is the 6th of November. That would start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it's at 845 East Madison. If anybody that would like to attend that, get a hold of myself, call the office and let the secretary know, or Chris McMahon, my training officer, and we will make arrangements to have equipment and everything there for everyone. Other than dealing with the COVID and dealing with everything that is involved with that and the overtime, as well as all my new hires that are in and out of the academies right now, that's pretty much what I've been busy doing.
All right, any questions for Chief McMasters? Or anything you commented on? Great job, Chief. And I know you're working on the overtime too, so that's what more can we say? Thank you very much for your report. We'll go on now to Sandra Finch, Human Relations. Unmute yourself there, kid.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Just want to report that for the period of September 22nd through October 19th, the office handled 28 complaints, which consisted of 2 police complaints, 12 employment complaints, 2 complaints against city employees, 11 housing complaints, and 1 public accommodation complaint. Having questions regarding the complaints?
Any questions at all? If not, thank you very much, Sandra. Thank you.
Well, I just want to also report that we still have funding from United Way for people who have been affected by COVID for rent and their utility bills. And I also want to tell you that the MOK committee with this COVID-19, we're looking at how we're going to hold the programs for the MOK event. So we're going to be finalizing that hopefully next month. And the application for the scholarship has been released. If you know anyone who is a graduating senior for 2021, they need to submit the application by December 4th of this year to my office.
Sandra, I have a question.
Sure.
Alderman Brown. The applications are out and you said you're looking into trying to have the program. What if it seemed like because of COVID, you will not be able to host this for the public? It's going to be kind of hard to celebrate it in any other kind of way. I don't know. Or did you all have any options besides what we've done previously?
Well, you know, with the banquet, and I really hate to kind of give out information which hasn't been finalized, but
okay, I understand that.
But you know, probably with the banquet, we probably will not have the banquet. But we are still looking at St. James United Methodist Church to hold a celebration that Monday, but the number of people will be limited. So we're trying to work out the details regarding how many people we can let in, that type of thing, whether or not it'll be invitational, because there is a capacity limit with this COVID for St. James United Methodist Church.
Right.
And probably the scholarship recipient will be announced at the church service instead of at the banquet, those type of things.
Okay. Yeah, I was just concerned, especially with not so much the banquet, but with the service on that Monday because of social distancing and all that. And I didn't know how that could be arranged because of what's going on. Hopefully we won't be shut down again.
Yeah, but we're looking into that, and with a lot of churches, especially with the Methodist Church, they have a capacity limit they must hold. So we'll probably be doing invitations to the program and doing it online.
Okay, that's good. That's okay. That's what I want to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, those are important. The proper people are there. Hopefully, at least you can say what hasn't been done to maybe our MLK celebrations in January, because it's only 2 months away, and hopefully hope they can assemble by then like we used to.
Yes. Well, you say like in January, hopefully, or?
Well, I think January is when we do the MLK birthday or.
Yes. That's when the celebration is.
Just kind of earmark that because that's usually a larger gathering.
Yes, well, it's going to take a lot of prayer for us to have that a regular program in January, but if it happens, that would be great. But right now, we are preparing, with the COVID restrictions in mind. So.
Yeah. Just one quick last question. Does anyone else have a question for Sandra first? Okay. The amount of money you still have left over, are these both loans and grants or just grants? What kind of money?
Just grants.
Okay, my question was, I thought about this previously, but
well, actually, this money actually is contributions from people in the community. That's what they are. They are contributions. Our program is different than the city of Danville, the one that Logan is overseeing.
Yeah. Okay, but there's cash involved, right?
Pardon me?
It's cash involved too, right?
Yes, cash is definitely involved. Yes.
My question was, is there any way, if it doesn't appear that it's going to be used completely, that some of this money might be able to channel to like some of the missions or over there where they're feeding people and doing things like that? Would they be eligible in any way to receive some of that, a reimbursement, like the kitchen over to Salvation Army, and there's other groups that are standing up for people,
Well, that would be up to the United Way committee. I mean, this is the United Way funding, and I really can't answer that question.
Okay.
So it would be up to them.
See, I thought we had some funds from the feds left, is what I thought you were talking about.
Well, I think the mayor can probably answer that question.
Chairman Foster, we do have some money from the federal government left as well. That is correct. In order to change how we purpose for it to be spent, we would have to go to HUD and submit a new amendment with our CDBG program and have that approved before we could redirect or reallocate any of those funds.
Well, it'd be nice if we could keep some of the funds in the city. I assume we have to keep them back if they're not granted. I mean, we have to give it back, so.
And I imagine, Chairman Foster, you probably would have to, like she said, United Way, because for instance, like Salvation Army, I serve on that board, and we receive some United Way funds, so that will be kind of like double dipping. And
Yeah,
I don't know
see.
about some of the other places, but it may be. So I can see why we'd probably have to check with the United Way office.
Sure.
On that.
I'm just looking for some way to keep the money perhaps in the community
Sure, I understand.
that fits the guidelines.
Sure. Chairman Foster, I think you know that I will do all that I can to never give any money back. So if it ever looks like that's a possibility, then we will certainly submit an amendment and see who else we can help locally.
Yeah, I'm crossing that out right there, Mayor, because I had it down that you were going to say that.
And I think the money with United Way, it's going to stay in our community as well. So you don't have to worry about it leaving our community.
I was only thinking I was just thinking the federal money. That's all.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions then on this topic or anything else for her? All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandra. Next thing we have down here is the IT people. I don't see him. Are you here out there? He's got a report. Angle.
Yes, I'm here. Can you all see
there he is.
All right. Thank you, Chairman. Just wanted to give you a few updates on what we're working on. It feels like since we met last time, we have accomplished a lot, especially getting everybody to work from home, remote setup and whatnot. So we have completed our phase 1 and 2 for cybersecurity that was approved. I just wrapped up the backup system upgrades and stuff last week, so now I can, sleep. I can get good sleep knowing that the backups are working. And with this new backup system, we have the ransomware detection technology, so it immediately notifies me if any of the computers are infected stuff before it runs the backup. So it protects the backups as well. So the good thing about this backup is there's a lot of automation which tells us if the backups are good, because a lot of the times the big mistakes people make is you have backups, but nobody verifies their backups if they're good or not. So this gives us the ability to make sure the backups are good. So we do verification almost on a daily basis. We just finished our financial system upgrade last week to the latest version, so we are all caught up on that. We are continuing to work on some of the new projects that include upgrade to our websites, document management, and securing our remote access. So we are still in the project kickoff stages for those. So I'll provide more updates as and when they're available. That's all I got. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions then for Agnew? If not, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
I have a question, if you don't.
Go ahead. Yeah, sure.
I was raising my hand, but obviously you can't see it, Mr. Foster.
No, I can't.
Sorry about that. So when we did the computers for all the aldermen, do Alderman Duncan and Alderman Davis have them also installed in their homes?
No, they haven't picked up their computers. So we're trying to get something scheduled, but I think we've tried that a few times and then something came up. So we are available anytime. So anytime they want to pick up, we will be happy to help them.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just wondering because, it would be nice to have them, on the calls. So.
Yes. We just got Alderman Williams last week. So we have 2 more that we're waiting.
Okay.
Thank you.
That was my question. Thank you.
Thanks, Agnew, for your good work too.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Leo, Mr. Maccabee. You're on.
Sure. So a brief
COVID update for the legal department. Our municipal court system was closed down for the time period that the city hall was closed. So we're getting caught back up with those cases. I think here recently we've gotten the numbers down lower, so we are back to where we were before pre-COVID. We're also back in the courthouse with our small claims cases. We are up to full-time 3 inspectors. We're here in the office. You can call us during the day, 8 to 4:30, and you can also stop by 1 to 4:30. We will take any questions or payments here at the legal department. I don't know of any specific projects that I need to report on, other than we are working with the other departments as far as the side lot purchases. We've got several of those where we are giving or selling properties to individuals. We've got several of those recorded, and we're working on those more upcoming. And I also know here in the upcoming months, we're going to be working on the rental registration. I want to get those out earlier this year and sent out to the applicants at the beginning of the year. So we are continuing to work with all the other departments to make sure that we can get everything done. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Okay, anyone have questions for Consul?
I have a question and a comment, excuse me, but I'm sorry, Sharon, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Kind of a question and a comment, Mr. Mark V. Lady in Ward 1, and she came to a meeting, and she's been very happy and satisfied with, I think it is one of the inspectors that goes over there in the area that she's having problems with. And she called me again, I think it was yesterday. She's very disturbed again about this guy with junk in his yard over there on Griggs and Kimball Street. And so anyway, she asked me yesterday, and I did tell her to call back and speak with the inspector, and I haven't heard from her since, but she says he'll clean that yard out, and then he'll go, once the inspectors get on him, but then he'll go right back and fill it up again. And so I told her I'd have no idea. I would still, maybe just say something to you and see if, I don't know what can be done about something like that. But
it is a tough situation. The main point of our code enforcement is to get the issue abated. So if you've got a situation where the individual is taking care of it, certainly we want to encourage that. But I understand if it's a continuous problem, we want to discourage that as well. So maybe I could give you a call and make sure we're talking about the same individual.
Sure.
And then I will talk with the inspector and see if there's a way that we can maybe stop that problem before it starts. And we want to make sure that that's an area that that neighbor wants to feels good about living there, and there's no issues there. So I'll give you a call tomorrow and see if we can stop that problem before it starts.
Okay, yeah, I would appreciate that. She's very satisfied with the service she gets from the city. She said everybody I talk to there is always very nice, and the inspector's real nice and talks to the guy, and he'll get stuff moved out when you get on him. But then a week or two later, he just fills it up again. So she said she didn't know what his problem was. Maybe he has some kind of a mental problem and doesn't understand. I know, because I know where the location is at, but I don't know about the person that's living there. So I said, well, they may be able to get something done, maybe to talk to him in a way that they can get him to understand. Once you clean it, don't fill it up again. So,
understood.
Anyway, I'll talk to you when you call.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Do you have any more item information?
I had a question, Mr.
Yeah,
Mockbee,
Sharon, yeah.
For Mr. Mockbee. What was the amount that we agreed to sell those lots to the neighbors for?
We are selling those for $99.
Okay. And so if I have somebody because I had somebody reach out to me for one of those, and so where do they call? They call directly down to you?
There is an application on the City of Danville website, and also our main contact for that would be Tracy Kraft over at Public Works. he would take their application and then it would filter it through a committee. And eventually I would be the one that would work with them as far as having them sign contracts and the deed. But your first point of contact would be Tracy Kraft.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Attorney Malkaby,
Yes.
can I ask a question? I've noticed a lot of people with these toters, they're leaving them out weeks at a time. Well, they never take them in. Is there any way we can ask our inspectors to kind of try to enforce that?
Yeah, we can. I know you've brought that up before at city council meetings, and I have passed that on. I'll give you a call as well, and if there's specific areas that you want our inspectors to look at, or maybe it's just a whole area. But yes, certainly we have ordinances that allow for certain time periods, and I'd be happy to work with you to get our inspectors out there and make sure that the citizens are abiding by that.
Okay. And I very much appreciate our inspectors. They're doing a great job.
I will pass that on. Thank you.
Mm.
Doug, I have one question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, it's on the Meyer property here in Holiday Hills. I know I got your feedback on it where he didn't show up and he's just got a fine. Is that just going to be the routine and everyday thing, or will he eventually make the fines stiff that he's going to do something with the property, or what's the future for that?
Well, certainly, yeah. If an individual gets fines and they go back to court, when we send them back to court, we would impose higher fines the second time. That individual you're talking about, I think, does have a separate case coming up. I want to say sometime in November, so we could do that. But yes, besides fines, though, there may be a situation where we can also work with Public Works to see if it needs to be abated by the city as well. And then we would pass that cost on to the offender as well. So besides the fines, it may be a situation where perhaps we get a search warrant and get the help of other departments and take care of the complaint as well on our own if possible.
Well, there's a fire hydrant, out in those weeds. You can see it and find it, but the weeds are as high as the fire hydrant. That should be a major issue about that property also.
And I think on the grass case, I want to say that he does have a case coming up in November. I'll check on that, and I'll be sure to send you an email with the exact date, though.
Okay, I appreciate it.
No problem.
Anyone else with questions? If not, this is as good a time as any to ask you a question or make a statement. For the past probably a good 20 years, I've received phone calls and emails from people thinking about running for the council and just asking me what's involved, what are the rules, what kind of experience do they have, and things like that. So I went back over my emails and answers, and I made a little compilation of the last 20 years of questions I've been asked, okay? And I sent it out to each alderman in an email. And I haven't heard back from anyone, but I'd like for them to review that because it has to do with a lot of features and also sometimes issues that we've had to resolve amongst the council and the mayor. I sent a copy of this to the mayor as well. And I have been talking a little bit with Mr. Mockbee about this, and he has graciously taken the time, but I think it's worthwhile to look into some of the state regulations and the things that we're not completely familiar with. And not asking to go into that at this time, Mr. Mockbee. I'm just saying that's what we're doing. However, when I talked to him earlier this week, I asked him if he thought it'd be okay if I had ask the city clerk to mail him out a hard copy, because one of the things that I addressed in there is the fact that we have people that have yet to ever open an email are still not opening emails from the city and her alderman. And so I think she can send this out. We just wanted to see if there's anything else that's arrived that maybe would cause me to want to modify the letter. But if not, may I ask, is there anyone there that read that email that I'm referring to? I'm going to have her send them to everybody by surface mail too. Is there anyone that's read that? And just
I read it, Mr. Foster. It was very well done.
Okay, McMahon has.
I also read it.
Bouchard, I read that. Is very informative. I appreciate it.
Okay, I'm gonna, Aaron, if you didn't get to it, and Thomas, I'm gonna have him send it out. Clerk, would you be willing to do that? She's probably listening, isn't she?
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll send you the latest copy of what I sent out to everybody else, and you can go from there.
Okay.
I finally went in and corrected some of my spelling errors and typos, but not all. So having said that, I'll send it out tomorrow to you, and you can send it on out in service mail. Are there any other questions on this report? Thank you. If not, we'll go right into police. Chief Yates, I see you're up and down, but you're with us.
I'm with you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and put that resolution out now. There's a resolution here for approving the memorandum of understanding with the Housing Authority of the City of Danville, and I move the way that reading because it's long, and also for its approval. I need a second.
I'll second.
It's moved and seconded. We can hold off questioning until you comment, or do you want a question on it? Does anyone have a question on it now? Okay, if not, Chief, you go ahead if you would, please.
What it is when I had the new MOU written with them last year, we made sure and put it in there that we'd review it every year in October and bring it forward to both the HACD as well as City Council through committee and then to full body. But the only change this year that we've had is we brought the hourly rate for service above and beyond regular services, police protection, police service from $42 an hour to $50 an hour. And if you remember, last year we were at $23 an hour because it hadn't been reviewed for some years, and that money was being supplemented by the COPS grant that we originally got, I believe, in '96. So there's been some very progressive changes in that, and they've been very good partners with the Danville Police Department and the city of Danville as far as their assistance, and they approved it at their board. I believe it was last Friday or the Friday before.
Okay, are there any questions on that resolution? Why don't we go ahead and have a, yeah, that's going to be a roll call, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Alderman McMahon?
I'm sorry, just a moment. Alderman Bouchard, did you have a question? I see that your hand is raised.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, I don't now.
Okay, thank you.
I had
Sorry.
Dr. Mockaby earlier.
All right, very good. Thank you. Sorry, Chairman.
Alderman McMahon?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Davis? Dungeon? Bouchard?
Yes.
Stone?
Yes.
Foster?
Yes.
5 yes.
5 yes, thank you. Any items, information, you have some reports there as well, don't you, Chief, on item 14?
Yes, I tried getting them out through an email, and I was having difficulties with that. But again, those are primarily just numbers, and so I wanted, without any context to it, they would be a little bit confusing. Well, essentially, what we've done is we've seen a decrease in overall calls for service from about 19,707 for a 3-month period of this time last year, in 2019, which that was a decrease from 2018, but we decreased it back again down to 18,615, difference of about 1,092 calls. And what's confusing with that also is that includes some of the self-initiated activity that is actually higher. We have significant increases on our self-initiated activities such as traffic enforcement, investigating different things through like such as Terry situations. But what I did was I broke it down to like 30 different indices or categories, and looking at those, and these are quality of life types concerns. You know, your burglaries, your shots fired, your subjects shot, stabbing victims, domestic batteries, and so on and so forth, about 30 of them. And what I've seen is 22 of those are slight to significant changes to or decreases. Okay, out of those 30, 22 are slightly to significant decreases. 5 of them are slight to moderate increases. 4 of them are slight, 1 of them's moderate. And then we have 3 different indices that's somewhat unchanged. So we're seeing improvements on each one of those categories. To say I'm satisfied and I want to high five anybody on it, it's totally not the case, because I think we have a lot of room to improve in different areas. But like I said, when we reduce our calls, you know, you got to compare. You can't compare obviously June to February, but when we look from year to year and compare months, and then we draw it out across the entire calendar year, we can show where we're improving and where we need to take a little bit further look, and it's data-based and data-driven. So we are seeing some very pleasant improvements there, but we have a long way to go. Proud to announce to you guys, and I know I've been talking about it for a while, but we kicked off the body-worn cameras. They're full go starting yesterday, Monday. Man, I tell you what, there's a list of people I need to thank for that, but primarily, Aaron and Agnell from IT, those guys helped out. We wouldn't have been able to do it without them. Obviously, we got some of the money from a grant, so that Ashlyn, I'm sure she cringes every time the phone rings and she sees my number, but she's been vital in getting the grant in the first place. And then our technical services manager, Campbell, has pretty much steered it from once it got to the department. But we're seeing, it was a lot bigger job to do than what we thought. Involving a grant, there's all kinds of recording and records and statutes that we have to satisfy in order to maintain the grant. And we got everything set up. Things just seemed to fall in place, but they didn't fall in place just with the wind. It took a lot of people doing a lot of hard work to get it done, and I'm very thankful for that. And we do want to purchase more cameras, but we're trying to find funding for it, and we'll get it once we get there. But that may take a few more months or close to a year, but we'll get it. Also wanted to sort of give you an update on, we pretty much cut out shortly, before we had the POP and the community housing unit out. And that started in May, and it's been phenomenal. Now I'll forward you all the 6-month stats on that and data, and try to set it up in a format to where it's easy to understand and it makes sense to everybody who reads it. But weapons that we've taken off the street, I think the POP unit just took their 20th unlawful weapon from someone that could cause harm to our community. And then the community housing unit, they're a little bit behind them, but that's a 2-man unit compared to a 4. But they've done a phenomenal job, and I'm not pleasantly surprised. I'm just happy with it, with how it's going. And a lot of work, a lot of different people put all that stuff together too, and it's going pretty well. A resource that we wanted to add to the department, I believe I talked to you about our agreement with U.S. Marshals and the assistance that they give us. It's so valuable, especially when we do these roundups of anything from violent sex offenders to people on federal warrants that are fugitive, whether on local and state warrants or federal warrants. They've been vital in helping us, and we're continuing that relationship. But hitting it from another aspect, is we understand with some of the violence that many communities are seeing right now involving firearms. We started discussion with the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, another federal agency. And what we did is we're in the process right now. We've already got a memorandum of understanding with them, tentative, and now we're moving on to the stage of an agreement. Once we get that settled, I'll bring that to committee, have you all take a look at it, and then forward it on to full council. But that's something that's going to be another resource to where what we've got with the marshals, with fugitives and certain investigations and sex predators, we're going to be able to hit it from another angle with firearms. And that's also going to bring another avenue of prosecution that we can use. and that's going to be a wonderful tool. So we're going to continue with that. I'll give you more once we get it. Before I go on to the next, does anybody have any questions on that stuff before we get too far ahead? Okay, District 118, I'm reviewing their MOU with them as well. I made sure that when we started our MOUs with all the different agencies or departments, that we make sure we put in there that it's to be reviewed every year. A lot of the things change. Funding changes, manpower changes, statutes change. Our needs, our resources, they all change. So that's something I want to make sure and just have as a standard practice. Every year it's reviewed. And so I should be bringing that to our next committee meeting, and hopefully we can get that ready for council as well. But one of the biggest problems with that, listen, COVID-19 is affecting every one of our departments, creates different challenges, but that's the thing that we have to look at. There's been no MOU with another agency that really had to put in a pandemic protocol. When we have SROs, that their policies and dealing with COVID-19 is different. The District 118's policies and protocols different than ours. We got to make sure and marry them together to where we're not utilizing people inefficiently. So that's what I'm working on right now. We'll get that done here shortly. Some of the extra considerations that we have, obviously COVID-19, already touched on that, but we have Halloween coming up. We sent something out to the community we're not going to dictate how people celebrate the holiday as far as with their kids. We want to leave that to the families, but we did want to put out a guideline of different safe alternatives that they could do, and then they can make that decision. However, our patrol and operations commanders, we've set up different things, and essentially just have more officers on the street that night, slowing down traffic, keeping an eye on different things, making sure that those that do celebrate it somewhat traditionally can do it the safest way that they possibly can. And then, of course, we got the election coming up next week. We've had communication with state as we in getting intelligence, as well as communicating with our other agencies that we work with, and setting up contingency plans for everything. We don't have any indication. However, we want to make sure and have everything set in place in case there's any type of problem, as with what we did with civil disorder and stuff like that. We want to just have everybody have a sense of security that we're not going to be discussing this the day of or after there's a problem. So that's taken, we're working on that as well. Overall with the department, I think I've been very clear in the direction that we're wanting to go since we started this April 2019. But I got to say, the morale, considering some of the challenges that we've had, the morale in the department is excellent. We have quite a few meetings, and that's something that I always ask the commanders and our command staff. How are the guys doing? How are they dealing with these different issues? And man, they're taking it like champs. I mean, they're really doing a good job. I'm not seeing increase of sick time. I'm not seeing an increase in anything other than self-initiated activity. They're out and going about doing things that they need to do, and we understand what our mission is, and they're driving towards it. So that's always good to report. I don't have any negative there. So other than that, that's about all I got.
It's quite a bit. Any questions for the chief on any of this?
No, I would just like to say, since Chief Yates has been the chief and the reports that he's giving, improvements in the city where it's needed, and so far, I'm just happy to see that things are running smoothly, and like the guns, being able to work with other agencies, to help better our city, and that's what we work at. As I always say, to make this great city a greater city. So thank you, Chief Yates.
I appreciate that, but I'm not near satisfied. We got a long ways to go, but we're moving that way.
But there's improvement. That's what I'm happy with.
Okay, is anyone else for the chief? If not, thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate it. The next item on item 15, item information, we need to give our close attention to this presentation Mike and I, as chairman of the two committees, have had some exposure to what you're about to hear, and I appreciate any comment also from the mayor. I think your thing took over an hour, but I know you can give us a thumbnail sketch and just tell us where we are. And you, between you and the mayor, I think we get an idea of the problem and the situation, and it's pretty important. So having said that, I'll ask for that presentation. Who's going to Cole, you giving it, or who's going to?
Yes, I'll be giving it. Mayor, would you like to say anything first before I begin?
Sure. Alderman, most of you have already had a chance to review some of this. There are a few things that Sam has updated, however, not any of the financial information. But more than anything else, we are doing this for the public so that they have an opportunity to see it again and also to have a chance to submit questions between now and then. The good news is that Director Spain from Vermilion Advantage recorded our session with the community today, and that actually has already been shared on public media. Agnell, or one of our team members, has also placed the presentation online on our city homepage. So anyone who wants to see exactly what is being shared here today, you wouldn't have to scroll through this meeting. You can actually just watch that. However, listening does offer you some insight that isn't necessarily shown in every slide. So a couple of things, and Alderman, we've already had this conversation somewhat, but I want to make sure to reiterate to the public a couple of things. So when I asked my fellow alderman to make me the acting mayor, and when I asked you to make me the actual elected mayor, I made you a couple of promises. Number one is that we would operate with integrity and transparency, that we would do what's right, that we would make sure that you know what it is that we're trying to accomplish in the community. I promised you that we would be great stewards of the resources that you give us, knowing that no money that the city has to spend comes from our own effort, but from the taxes and fees that you pay us, that we would do the absolute best that we could with what you give us before we ever ask you for more, and that we would only ask you for more if it was absolutely necessary. I also promised you that we would do some asset mapping, meaning that we would do an assessment of all of our infrastructure within the community so that we could have a better understanding of what the condition of everything is, from our roads to our sewers to bridges to our buildings, stormwater, you name it. We can have an assessment of that. And I also said to you that I would not be afraid to make tough decisions. And what I'm very proud to tell you is that we've kept our word on all of these things. And unfortunately, we are faced with a tough decision, one that quite honestly makes me sick to have to ask for. But again, as I said earlier, I would not ask for it if it were absolutely necessary. Many of you know that we have an issue in our community with a very aged sewer and stormwater infrastructure system. In fact, you may not know this part, we still have some sewers in our community that are made with brick and mortar. So literally, instead of actual pipes, you have some sewer sources that are made with brick and mortar. We have sewers that are older than Sam and I combined in this community right now. I'm 42 and he's 30 something, so 80. We'll just call it 80. We have sewers that are well over that age at this point, and we've seen a lot of failures in just a couple of years that I've been mayor. We've seen a number of failures, including over on Woodbury Street. We actually had a woman showing some folks something, and literally sewer collapsed underneath her, and she fell into the hole. So what we are presenting to you today is to explain to you the need for the repairs that we have with our sanitary, sewer, and stormwater systems, and our proposal to help address them. Because what I absolutely refuse to do is ever mislead the public and to give you something that's not the whole picture. So at that time, with that said, I'll turn it over to Sam.
Sure. So
for the public, Sam is our city engineer.
Yes. So I'm Sam Cole, city engineer. Before I get into the presentation, I just want to say, we wouldn't bring this to everybody's attention if we didn't care. And this is not something easy to stand before all of you and ask for or say, as the mayor said. But it's the fact that we passionately believe in the future of this community. We care about the very businesses that we're asking to carry this burden, about the citizen. We care for the citizens that we're asking to carry this burden. And it is an important issue. And, you know, we do not feel that it would be appropriate of us to ignore this and not bring this to your attention and propose a path forward. So that being said, before I get into the presentation too, you know, I want to say, this presentation is not designed to highlight that the city has never done anything for sanitary sewers, because that's not the case. The city has been collecting sanitary sewer funds and has done sanitary sewer projects, including projects in Holiday Hills, Walnut, Franklin, Oak Streets, the Westwood project, several pump stations all over town. And then that's just since I've been, you know, in the last 10 years. But what we'll demonstrate is that it's not enough. We are not keeping pace with the needs. We're not keeping pace with the deterioration that we're seeing in the city, and we're losing ground quite quickly. From east to west, north to south, there are sewer issues all over this community. And those sewer issues lead to collapses in streets. They lead to backups in basements. They lead to sewage overflows into streets. They lead to flooding in neighborhoods, you know, all of these items. You know, the Northeast or Edgewood neighborhood has issues. The Danville West area, which we're getting ready to do a huge project for, has areas, and we'll still have issues even after that's done, that lead to overflows into the golf course out there by Danville West. Chester Street, Monterey, and Meridian has known issues. An area north of Voorhees and English, all the way up to Winter Street, has periodic backups and overflows. The general center city area, there's lots of, you know, areas that experience intermittent problems there. Cleveland Street, State Street, everywhere kind of south of Main Street and east of Bowman drains to the Cohen Creek interceptor, which we still have overflows with into Cohen Creek on a fairly regular basis. Lake shores, we have erosion in ravines that are undermining, you know, exposing sewers, and we've got pump stations on the sides of ravines that are, you know, in danger of not immediate collapse, but in future compromise, basically. So that's all just to say that, you know, there are problems all over, and that doesn't even touch the, you know, $30 to $35 million worth of stormwater projects that were listed in the stormwater master plan that the city did years ago. So that's just kind of a picture of how wide the needs are in this community. And with that, I'm going to turn off my camera, not so I don't see you guys, but so I'm not distracted. I can't see myself when I'm doing the presentation. So I don't want you to see the side of my head or something like that, but I'll pull that up right now. And Mayor, while I'm presenting, if you have things to interject, please feel free. So.
Thanks, Sam.
All right, so I assume you can all see that and hear me now as well. So
yes, we can.
What we're going to be talking about is related to the Storm and Sanitary Sewer Fund for the city of Danville. That's Fund 402. So we've gone over this with the alderman, but I know there's many people out there in the community that don't understand why we don't just collect some of the other money and pay for this. But the Storm and Sanitary Sewer Fund is considered an enterprise fund. It's to be self-supporting, supported with revenues from fees and licenses and things particularly derived from operation of those systems, in this case, sewer fees and sewer permits and things like that. Enterprise funds, they're to be reviewed annually and set at levels adequate to meet expenditures, less than the excess fund balance. We should, like I said, we should be reviewing them annually in conjunction with the 5-year capital program, which we admittedly, we have not had that. And that is something we are striving, you know, very hard to get to. You'll see the beginnings of that in this presentation. We also are supposed to implement and maintain that 5-year capital plan, and we should be updating it annually based on new projects and new projections. And we should be prioritizing investments based on the condition of assets and scheduling maintenance and replacement. So our financial policy also spells out, you know, an estimated useful life for various assets, and infrastructure like sewer mains and storm sewers have an estimated useful life in our financial policy of 50 years. You'll see later on that we're actually projecting a little bit longer useful life than that on several of our sewers, and we believe that's reasonable. So anyway, I'll go ahead and turn to the next slide here.
Sam, before you start
Yes.
talking,
Yes.
anyone that's having trouble viewing this, if the print's too small, go up to right corner and click on View and Standard. You'll be able to see it full size and read it easily. That's right corner is View and then click Standard, because otherwise you're going to get a microscopic picture.
Yeah, where my video was, sure. Okay, so let's get into what we own as a city and what we are responsible for maintaining to serve the public. One of the elements of our sanitary sewer system is gravity sewers. And those are sewers where the water essentially flows by gravity downhill towards the treatment plant or towards another location. The city has approximately 177 miles of gravity sewers, and we estimate the life expectancy of about 80 years for those assets. So if you have an 80-year life, on average, we would need to replace 1/80th of our system every year if we wanted to be on a sustainable funding scenario, which we do, and our financial policies say we should. So that would mean we need to replace or rehabilitate approximately 2.2 miles each year. We believe we can rehabilitate 80% of those sewers at an average cost of $50 a foot, and we would have to replace by digging up or other more expensive methods about 20% at an average cost of $250 a foot. So that would lead to an annual need or investment of $1,053,000 in gravity sewers.
Sam, I might interject there if I may.
Yes.
Just want to make sure that we point out to people, if we get it before it deteriorates so bad that we can't line it, we can only spend $50 per square foot. However, if we have to replace the entire thing, then the taxpayers have to pay 5 times as much in order for us to replace it. And Sam, could you talk? I know that you said if we had to do an emergency repair, it's even more expensive than that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So let's say we have a collapse at a specific spot on a sewer, which is fairly common, especially with the age of sewers that we have. If that collapse were in like an ideal location, it might cost us $5,000 to dig down and repair that and backfill it and do all that work. And we might only be replacing a 5-foot section of that pipe. So that's an approximate cost of $1,000 per foot. Now, if that sewer repairs in a road, it could cost us $10,000 to $20,000 for that same location. And that's going to increase the cost to $2,000 to $4,000 per foot to replace that. Now you could take that same $20,000 and you could line a whole block almost of sanitary sewer for that money and rehabilitate that if you do that ahead of time. So that's one reason it's important that this problem not go longer, because the longer we wait, the more sewers move from the rehabilitation cost to the replacement cost where we have to dig those up. And that would be, exorbitantly more expensive than what we're proposing to you here. So anyway, we don't have a crystal ball to say when that happens. These are approximations, but a solid sanitary sewer program is needed to make sure that that doesn't happen. So, or at least is minimized. So moving on to force mains. Force mains are pressurized sewers that take sewage from a pump station to a gravity sewer generally towards the treatment plant. The city owns approximately 11.9 miles of force mains, and the life expectancy of those is 50 years. So with a 50-year life, we need to plan to replace 1/50th of our system on average every year, or a little over 1,200 feet a year. We believe we can replace that for an average cost of $125 a foot, with an annual need of $157,000 a year on force mains. So now moving on to the kind of the third major category for the city's sanitary sewer system, that's pump stations. The city actually owns 27 pump stations throughout Danville. And these pump stations are located in areas where because of topography or geography, or adjacent features, we can't utilize gravity sewers. So we have to pump the sewage to another location. The 5-year estimate, which is before you, shows need to rehabilitate or spend significant money on 10 of those pump stations, and for a total cost of approximately $5.825 million. That's an average annual need of $1.165 million over the next 5 years in those systems. Now the other category of sewers in the city is storm sewers. That is something, as this is the Storm and Sanitary Sewer Fund, that is a component of this fund, of this enterprise fund. We believe we have approximately 750,000 feet or 142 miles of sewers. This number is a little bit more approximate than the sanitary sewers. We have a significant portion of this system mapped, but not 100% yet, or at least not converted to GIS systems where we can easily extract the data and the lengths and things from that. Like sanitary sewers, we expect an 80-year life expectancy out of these, which would mean to do 1/80th of these sewers to rehab them or replace them, we would need to do approximately 1.8 miles of sewers per year. We believe we can rehab or budget for rehabbing 65% of the system, but we would need to dig up 35%. And that's related to items, things such as the condition may be more deteriorated by inlet structures because of road traffic. Short lengths on the storm sewer things don't always make it cost effective to line those. So anyway, that's why the percentages are a little bit different than sanitary sewers. But between rehab and replacement, we would have an estimated annual need of $1.125 million per year. So any questions before I move into the next slide, or any comments, Mayor?
Sam, so, a lot of what, of course, no one wants to pay more. I absolutely don't want to pay more, and it makes me sick to ask people to pay more. I think we've shown that we have a debilitating need, but what Sam has outlined here for you is the why we need more and what would be done with the money. Currently, we only collect, and you'll see this further in Sam's presentation, about $370,000 a year to meet capital needs. As you can see from the pump station slide that he put up there, that would not even replace one pump station. So we couldn't even replace one pump station, let alone do all of the, maybe the very smallest. There might be one that we could replace. But yeah, most of them are going to cost us $400,000 a year or more.
Correct. Yep, that's absolutely correct.
And so our total need, Sam, if you can scroll forward to that, I think that's your next slide.
It's one more after that. So, but yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Sam. Sorry. So,
yeah.
I apologize.
Anyway, suffice to say, if you add all those up, that's roughly, it's a little under $4 million in capital investment needed. And as the mayor outlined, currently, if we weren't to change rate structures at all, we would project to have $370,000 per year, and that's next year, which that number would be going lower and lower each year as we go forward, because our rate increases are not adequate to keep up with inflation right now. So that's just a further depleting thing with no action. So as we spoke, right now the city collects approximately $3.7 million in revenue from the that comes into the sanitary sewer fund. What we need to get to is approximately $7.7 million. So looking at those two numbers, that's more than double the revenue that's needed to meet the actual need, or estimated annual need to get all that work done. So rather than just assume that everybody was going to need to double, we wanted to look at how the billing system is set up now, who's charged what, and is it appropriate, I guess. So we looked at residential, commercial, and industrial properties, and what we found was that overall, residential properties place a demand equal to about 61% of the usage or capacity on a system, but we collect 73% of the revenue from residential properties. So residential properties are paying more than their fair share, let's say, on the sewer system. Commercial properties generate about 19% of the usage or capacity needs on the system, and we collect approximately 14% of the revenue from those entities. So their demand on the system is higher than what the revenue that's generated to the city from those entities. Industrial customers, they make up about 20% of the capacity needs, and we collect about 13% of the revenue from those entities. So once again, the revenue collected from them is not as much as their capacity or requirements. What you'll see, from top to bottom is that right now the average residential customer is paying $3.27 per 1,000 gallons. The commercial properties are paying $2.04 per 1,000 gallons, and the industrial properties are paying $1.77 per 1,000 gallons. You won't find those numbers in the ordinance as it exists. That's just based on analysis of the data and of the billing rates. That's the effective rate. Right? It's like saying your effective tax rate is, something, but there's a lot of different things that go into that. Under the proposed scenario, we wanted to equalize the amount that all.
Sam, I apologize if I may. So what I want
Yes.
to point out to the public is essentially right now residential users are subsidizing the use of commercial and industrial users.
Yeah.
Right now, residential folks are paying approximately 50% more per gallon than commercial users are, and they're paying nearly 100% more than existing than the industrial users. So what Sam's going to point out to you is that we didn't think it was fair that different entities should be charged different rates, and so that's what he's going to go into.
And that's not a common practice industry-wide either. It's very atypical that there would be different rates for different types of users. Where that would come into play is on the treatment side, if there's chemicals and things like that. And that's something for the Danville Sanitary District to account for, not the city of Danville, unless somebody was causing significant damage to our system based on what they were discharging. And we're not seeing that. So to get to the proposed revenue, based on the usage that we see or the demand that we see, that would basically what we'd have to do is increase the rate to $5.95 per 1,000 gallons. We wanted to equalize, the charges that you'll see, or we want to make sure that residential is what we collect from them is based on what their demand on the system is. So you'll see that they're 56% of the capacity and 56% of the revenue. Commercial is 26% of the capacity and 26% of the revenue. And industrial is 18% of the capacity and 18% of the revenue. You'll note that there is a difference in the percentages from left to right, from existing to proposed. That's because there are a large number of commercial entities, especially, that are not paying hardly anything for sanitary sewer right now. There are very underutilized structures. And one thing that we did was what we're proposing to do is set a minimum bill based on 10,000 gallons of usage on a commercial property. And that takes into account the fact that whether or not a building's occupied, the city still has to provide sewer service to that entity, whether or not it's barely used. The exact amount of water usage is less important to us than how much water usage we would have to provide, or how much capacity we would have to provide in the sewer system if that building was fully utilized and utilized to its fullest extent. So usage is a way of comparing that from one entity to the next, but it doesn't tell the whole story. And we do experience significant challenges from unoccupied structures and from blocks of city streets that are sewers that have very little usage on them. We frequently experience more sewer issues there because there's not enough flow to keep things flushed out. And we often have more frequent sewer calls in low occupancy areas. So, all right, so how will these additional funds be used? This is just a general summary of the categories that we view as underfunded, and that we've calculated are underfunded. Sanitary sewer infrastructure improvements. So pump stations, gravity sewers, force mains would receive $2.005 million a year. in infrastructure improvement funding. There would be 1.125 million that would go towards storm infrastructure improvements. And that would allow us to chip away at maintenance, as well as hopefully chipping away at some of those stormwater master plan projects, given they're in an area that we can accommodate that. 510,000 would go to engineering services for infrastructure improvements, specifically to do the design and maybe some construction engineering if needed on these projects, because there's not enough city staff and expertise to do all of these projects. So that would require outsourcing. Not for all of it, but for a significant part of it. 150,000 would go to additional equipment and vehicle replacements, such as Vector trucks and TV trucks, to do sewer inspections and maintenance. 180,000 would go into primarily really remote right-of-ways, like out in wooded areas, things that just get completely cleared so that we can have access to them in case of emergency, and be able to clean those and maintain those. And that would also go into sewer inspections to assess the condition of sewers and to help us prioritize where these projects need to take place and how they need to occur to best serve the public cost effectively. And then 60,000 would go into materials to maintain storm sewers, which would be maintenance dollars that we would use with our operations crews for storm sewer and storm sewer inlet repairs, things like that. So as you'll see, the total of that is a little over $4 million, which is basically the difference between the fund today and the fund where we need to go. So today, sewer bills range on the residential side for a single family household from $9.18. And there's like one person that low. There are very few people down at that end of the spectrum. And the highest is $32.75 a month. The average is $16.10 a month. Right now, the multi-unit residential pays $11.
Sam, I apologize. I want to interject there.
Yes.
This is, again, a lot of people have been saying, what are our sewer rates based on now? And some people have thought they're not. Again, they vary, and they're based on your water consumption in 2006. In 2006, in my home, there was a family with 2 parents, 6 children, and a mother-in-law. So 9 people were living there at that point in time. So as you can imagine, the water usage and thus the sewer fee would have been much higher. However, you fast forward to now, and it's just me, a bachelor. I can be a little messy sometimes, but I'm certainly not using the same amount of water as 9 folks. Conversely, you have other people who are just the opposite. 14 years ago in 2006, they had a single person living there that wasn't generating much water usage, and now you have a big family like the one I previously mentioned. Well, obviously they're not paying any more than they were previously, because all of our rates are based on 2006. And quite honestly, that's one of the biggest complaints that I've got as mayor, and I did as an alderman, and I think you did as alderman, is that the previous sewer rate, the existing sewer rate, is not fair because it's not based in any kind of remote current reality.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that we clarified that with people, that your current rate is based on whatever what was being used in your house 14 years ago.
Sure. So currently the multi-unit rate, if you're in an apartment or something, the cost to that unit is $11.75 per month. There are a few that are kind of some random other prices that we're not sure how that occurred, but generally they're $11.75 a month. Commercial accounts, there are bills, an average monthly bill as low as 2 cents a month, which is a very oddball one, and as high as almost $2,900 a month, with an average being $29.62 right now. Industrial accounts, and there are only 8 in the city, range from $125 per month to almost $16,000 a month right now. So where we want to take things is for residential, for single family residential, is to a flat fee structure. And that's based on the premise that most households generally use approximately, they vary a little bit, but the amount of quantity and capacity the city has to pay or has to account for does not vary based on how many occupants are on that house. There may be a slightly different burden, but it's pretty negligible for the most part on a residence. And so in general, we felt it was appropriate to equalize those. So $29.75 per month is what we're proposing. And that, where the $5.95 per 1,000 gallons comes into play, is that we assumed that a single family residence would use 5,000 gallons a month. And if you multiply 5 by $5.95, you come up with $29.75. Multi-unit residents or residential units would go to $17.85. They're still at the $5.95 per 1,000 gallon rate, but that's assuming they will use 3,000 gallons per month per unit. That's how that's calculated. So that would be a flat fee as well, month to month for every unit, multifamily residential unit in the city of Danville. Commercial customers that use less than 10,000 gallons a month, we propose a flat fee of $59.50 per month for those commercial users. What we've found in general, there's numerous commercial users that pay very little, and the fact that they use very little doesn't change the fact that we maintain more sewer for the average commercial lot than we do for the average residential lot. If you think about how large commercial lots are, you have to have a building and a parking lot and some other stuff typically. And oftentimes the length of sewer that we maintain per property is twice as much or more for a commercial property than it is for a residence. We also have to assume that, we have to design sewers to have a capacity that would serve that building kind of in its optimal use. And, commercial properties have potential to be a restaurant or to be, other uses that have potential to use more water. And we have to basically design around that. Commercial users that use more than 10,000 gallons, they would be charged based on the same cost per gallon as residential, which is that $5.95 per 1,000 gallons. If they dropped below 10,000 gallons, they'd be subject to the minimum, the $59.50 a month minimum. Over that, it would be based on that cost per 1,000 gallons rate. So the same holds true for industrial accounts. They would be subject to a minimum of $59.50. That does not apply to any of our resident or industrial accounts, and is probably unlikely to, but nonetheless, they would be subject to that should it apply, and they would be charged $5.95 per 1,000 gallons, the same as all the residential and commercial properties. So I guess before we dive into these, one of the things that I liked about the process the city went through is that we didn't start with figuring out what rate we wanted to go to. We started with looking at the needs of the community, the actual assets. We calculated how much revenue we would need to do the appropriate job and an adequate job prior to ever looking at the actual rates. And then we calculated the rate, and then we decided to compare it. We did not want to look at other communities' rates first and cause bias in ourselves about what we thought was appropriate or not. So that being said, I'll go through to the next slide. Every year, Burns Clancy and Associates, a consulting firm from Urbana, does a study where they look at the water and sewer rates of communities throughout central Illinois. And they look at how much it would cost to use 5,250 gallons in that community, both on the water side or the sewer side. And if you recall, we're assuming that an average resident is going to use 5,000. That's very close to this 5,250 gallon mark. So we're both kind of looking at the same thing. And with the proposed change, if you're a resident using 5,250 gallons, you would be charged a flat rate of $29.75 by the city. You would also be subject to the Danville Sanitary District treatment cost, which is currently $7.75, will be $8.25 starting towards the middle of next year. So the combined rate would be $38 for the city of Danville. That's the number that we have to use to compare to these other communities. And if you read down the list, communities like Oakwood, you'd be paying $47, Georgetown $46, Catlin $67, Charleston $40, Homer $65, Mahomet $59, Manteno almost $72, Marshall $44, Mattoon $48, Monticello $49, Paris $54. Tilton this year you'd be paying $32.75. Next year you'll be paying $42. Rantools at 3130, Watseka 3645, Arthur 49, Chrisman 36, Lafayette 44, Terre Haute 64, Ridge Farm just under 47, Shabance, Illinois, you'd be at $111, and Thomasboro almost 72. That's not to say there are many communities that are less than us right now still. And I don't believe they're the communities to compare ourselves to, because they haven't faced the reality of what it means to maintain a sewer system. I think that day is coming. The community, a home, everybody in a home has in a given year. So in general, if you're less than 1% of median household income, it's considered very affordable. 1 to 1.5% is still affordable. 1.5 to 2% less affordable, and over 2%. There's a possibility it's going to cause hardship, especially in low income households. I mean, there's always a possibility it's going to cause hardship regardless. As I stated before, the city portion of the bill for the average resident will be $29.75. Add the district fee, and you've got $38. Danville's household income in 2018 was just over $36,000. So as I said, the affordable range is 1 to 1.5%. So if we fell between $30.15 a month, which is 1%, and $45.22 a month, which is 1.5%, we'd be affordable. Well, we fall, in at $38 a month, which figures up to be 1.26% of median household income. So we fall smack dab in the range of things that are considered affordable on the water wastewater utility side. And I did want to note, this includes the stormwater side of things for the city. I can't say that all the other communities do or don't, but we consider that a pretty significant value add, that we are able to provide that service at the same, at a competitive rate compared to other communities for just the sanitary sewer side in general. So that is, obviously that is a cost in this because it's in that fund, but we consider that's a pretty cost-effective approach. So going to kind of through the highlights of what we have now versus where we need to go and where we're proposing to go. Currently we can meet basic operational needs and we can complete emergency repairs, and we'll still be able to do that. We're not able to meet the estimated funding requirements for the 5-year capital investment needs in pump stations, but we would be able to. We don't currently fund sewer smoke testing, flow monitoring, televising, investigating sewer or televising for investigating sewer backups, inflow and infiltration removal, or mitigating future structural pipe failures, like TVing them to fix them before it's too late. We do a little bit of that, but it's on an emergency basis in general. It's not a proactive thing, which is much more cost effective, but we would be able to. We don't currently fund the estimated annual need for sewer lining, rehabilitation, or replacements. We would be able to. We can't currently maintain remote right-of-ways and easements because there's just not funding for it, but we would be able to. We can't currently support the replacements of equipment such as Vector trucks and TV trucks. Those items alone can cost $500,000 each. And the city has a TV truck and 2 Vector trucks and backhoes and other pieces of equipment. But we would be able to support those improvements and upgrades that are much needed going forward. Currently, we don't have any funds allocated for storm sewer maintenance in the budget, but we would be adding funds to do that, to do in-house maintenance on storm sewers and repairs. We're not providing any funding currently for storm sewer replacement, rehabilitation, and we would be providing funding based on an estimated level of average annual need. And where that differs from some of the past approaches is that, we're not looking at how do we get done $35 million worth of projects in 10 years. It's how do we spend kind of a ongoing amount to chip away at these things and put ourselves on a sustainable path. Currently, all the different customers pay all different rates, basically. Industrial pays different than commercial, which pays different than residential effectively. And we want to equalize those. We also want to set up a minimum charge that doesn't exist today for residential, commercial, industrial customers. recognizing that the city provides sewer service to those properties, whether or not they're occupied, and we're obligated to do so. And those individuals aren't sharing in the cost of providing that service. We currently do not have sufficient annual increases in the revenue stream to cover the cost of inflation. And we unfortunately have to factor in customer and population loss within our community. And we wish that weren't the case, but that, until the trends change on that, that's something that we need to account for, or else we're just, we're not really doing our job as far as budgeting for future changes in revenue. But we would be proposing to do that. And that would be in the form, and I'll highlight that here. Essentially, construction costs are estimated to go up 3% annually. And that has been a trend over the past 10 years. The construction cost index is different than the consumer price index, which most people often refer to. And it's trended around at 1.5% to 2% per year. Ours is trending closer to 3%. And that's the one that's going to affect this budget. So that's what we need to budget for. We also have been losing approximately 1% of our population, every year. So that means that if we have 100% this year, only 99% of the people are paying for this sewer bill next year. So each year we've got to account that for the fact that fewer and fewer people are here paying that bill. And we also know that we're on the early side of this, and that there will be sewers that exist that we don't know exist. There will be sewers that we have to add because there are, connection issues, or there's neighborhoods that don't have sewer service. So we would propose an additional 1% to account for trying to chip away at those unknowns and at the significant backlog we have. So all that considered, we're proposing a 5% annual increase going forward after this initial rate setting. Then we also aren't currently investing annually at a rate that keeps pace with asset life expectancy. We're not budgeting to replace 1/80th of our gravity sewers or 1/50th of our force mains. We're not even budgeting to replace one pump station a year at this point. And we're certainly not operating as a self-supporting enterprise fund as this fund is supposed to be, but the proposal gets us to that. It will be a self-supporting enterprise fund with all revenue generated through the fees to support this. And one thing that neither the current model nor the proposed do is address all of the deferred maintenance in need. That's not to say that we won't be addressing some of it, but we're not asking for, I haven't put together a proposal that says there's $50 million worth of backlog in work. I don't know 100% what that number is at this point. And that's something that we're going to have to find out as we go. But if we were to do that, obviously the rate would be even higher if we're going to try to knock out that backlog in a given period of time. I mean, the stormwater backlog, as the stormwater master plan showed, was 30 to 35 million. And if you were to try to address it over a 10-year period, that's 3.5 million just towards that each year. So that admittedly is not in this. And we felt like this is shock enough and challenging enough on its own. And we want to get ourselves on a sustainable path, but we recognize we can't do everything overnight either. So, and then for, the residents, the commercial customers, others out there, how does this affect your bill? What is this actually going to look like? And if you're looking at a bill which says Danville Sanitary District, but it is primarily costs related to the city of Danville, that the sanitary district bills for the city of Danville through a cooperative agreement. The upper portion of the bill is for the Danville Sanitary District. You'll see in the lower portion, there's 3 items. One says city sewer, one says city garbage, and one says pub SAF fee, which is public safety fee. That's a public safety pension fee that's charged to all structures, I believe, within the community. The city garbage is pretty clear. It's city garbage. And the rate that we're impacting and that these proposed changes will center around is city sewer. So if you were this resident paying $18.75 on city sewer, your rate would be going to $29.75 on that item as of April 1st, 2021. So I believe that is the end of my presentation. So does anybody have any questions?
Sam, before everyone jumps in, I know one thing that's been asked a lot is we're in COVID. This is the worst time ever to possibly introduce something like this. Why are we doing this now, and why do we think it's a better approach not to phase it in?
Yeah, sure. So I think we all know that COVID really stinks. And it's, you know, it's hit some people worse than others. And I would challenge, you know, I'm not sure when the right time is. I believe that this is something that's been talked about for decades. And I suspect that the perfect time occurred sometime in the last several decades, or maybe it occurs today, you know, because it's not been done yet. So I don't know that waiting for the perfect time is a viable solution, especially for a government entity. There's just too many things at play there. And we did, you know, considering the challenge with this significantly, we did look at phasing it in. And if you look at what it costs over what needs to be met over a 5-year period, if you have to invest $4 million a year on average, you know, for 5 years, that's $20 million over, you know, total over 5 years in the infrastructure side. If you only paid 2 of that in the front end, you've got to make up that 2 on the back end, right? So what you don't pay, you create a balloon payment for on the back end. And we initially said, okay, well, if the average is 16, what's $22.75 look like per month? You know, and if we start there, how do we collect that same amount of money and get the work done and not pass the buck down the road and not pass burdens on to future generations that are undue? Let's not make this worse than what it is today. And what you arrive at is, instead of $29.75 with 5% inflation, that would take you to about $36 at the end of a 5-year period. If you did the $22.75, you would have to do 20% increases, and you would end up at $46 a month. And we just didn't think that wasn't going to be something that was real. It just didn't look like a good idea. To make the easy decision now, but have it be harder later, and just more expensive later because we didn't, you know, go all the way. So anyway, that's kind of my spiel on why. So.
Does anyone have any questions for Samurai or any comments?
Aaron.
Yes, I have ended up with 7 calls on this today because people are just finding out about this. And honestly, they're completely pissed off. I mean, this is almost doubling residential, tripling commercial, and quadrupling industrial. I realize there's no ideal time, but this literally is the worst time in like the last 100 years. Commercial people are getting shut down, and you want to triple their bill. I mean, who knows? They're probably going to get shut down again here. So, I mean, one thing I don't understand is, why isn't this going to Public Works for approval instead of going straight to City Council? I mean, can somebody answer that?
This has to be, our budget is based on this increase. So if this increase is not there, we have to have time to readjust the budget to make it back to what it would be without these increases.
Well, I mean, we can't just increase $4 million of taxes and not have it go to Public Works. If it's got to wait, it's got to wait then. I mean, everybody's just finding out about this.
It's a matter of it going to committee first, which we've just done tonight. There isn't any specific committee that anything ever has to go to by our ordinance. It doesn't have to ever go to committee, but we felt, especially because it was such a big thing, that we wanted it to go to committee first. And that's why we brought it to the Public Services Committee this evening.
Is it getting voted on?
No.
Well, I mean, I think it should be brought to Public Works and voted on where it should be.
Mayor, may I speak?
Yeah, go ahead, guys.
Sure, Chairman.
Aaron, goes back probably several weeks. The mayor, myself, Alderman Foster, Chairman Foster met. We discussed how this would go. I was concerned with it not going to Public Works as well. We did open up the meeting this morning to not only the businesses. We also opened it up to the aldermen. There's also a meeting tomorrow afternoon, open to everybody, the community, as well as the businesses. And I encouraged everyone to try and get on the Public Services Committee where it also be presented. With 3 different presentations, I thought it was probably good to get it out to the public, to get it out to the media, to get it out to the aldermen, and not necessarily have to go to Public Works the second week of next month. So that's kind of how we got to this point. Of course, you know, it's basically items of information currently to let not only the public but the aldermen know what has been presented and what is being presented.
I see, Michael, that you have a large number of your people here tonight too, the most I've ever seen from Public Works, so they're hearing part of it. But I understand exactly where Trogley is coming from. And Bob, I believe you had your hand up. Bob Iverson, you're next.
Chairman, if I may interject briefly, and to say that this is the first time that people know about this and that there's an increase coming, that's simply not true. The 200 and plus largest users were sent a letter more than a week ago inviting them to these. They were told at that time what those rates would be. So to say that they're just finding out or that they just know, that's not accurate. The public was also invited to these meetings as well last week. So for them to say that no, they didn't know, they didn't know everything. They didn't have the entire presentation, but they knew that there was a rate increase proposed. And they were invited to come and learn about it. And not one business showed up today.
Well, no, they didn't know. Because so on the commercial news, it said, I've seen nothing in the commercial news about this. If it has, it definitely did not include any numbers on this. I mean, because people didn't realize it's getting double, tripled, and quadrupled. They think there might be a small increase, but I mean, this is like an ideal scenario. We can't do an ideal scenario right now. I mean,
that's if I can just speak to the approach on this. Government entities are always challenged with this approach. They are not known for making it easy to make the right decision when running what is essentially a public utility, right? If this were owned by anybody other than a municipal entity, by an Ameren or by an Aqua or American Water, they would file a rate case with the Commerce Commission. They would review it for reasonability. The public could comment on it. And the ICC would rule if it's reasonable and approve it. And in this case, what we're presenting to you is essentially a case for making a rate. And to me, it's a little bit unhealthy to make this we completely understand that it is a financial impact, but we need to look at it from a sustainable utility standpoint. And are we providing a competitive service to others? And we have shown that we are. We totally get that it stinks that it's such a big rate increase. The reason it stinks is because it's a big increase. It's not because the rate is unreasonable or not affordable. It's just that it's been waiting for so long to be done. And that's not to say that we shouldn't take the public comments, because we do. I've been fielding calls all day myself. Nobody wants to see a rate increase in general. We'd all like to see it stay where it is. But I just wanted to speak to the difference between what's really appropriate and healthy running of a utility type thing versus what the government process often becomes on something you're not going to escape the cost of this long term. You know, whether you face it today or tomorrow, if anything, it's going to get worse. So do we want to take that risk? You know, do we want to say this year is so bad that, you know, we want to make it worse tomorrow? I don't know. You know, I guess that's for you guys to decide, but that is not my recommendation. And it never will be. So.
And my question to you, Alderman Trogley, as a business person, would you prefer to pay 5 times or 10 times or 20 times the rate that we're asking people to pay now? Because that's what's going to happen if you let this stuff go out.
This is the worst time to do it ever.
If you let sewer go back into people's houses, into people's businesses. That's what happens when people can't get rid of their wastewater from their business. so that they can manufacture whatever it is if we don't start fixing these problems.
This is literally the worst time
You're
ever.
going to pay 5 to 10 to 20 times more.
I just don't believe it's going to be that much. I have houses I'm literally have the most house. I mean, I don't have sewers backing up in my house because of city sewer problems. I mean,
It's because you don't,
it's been
doesn't
going on
mean
for
other
80
people
to
don't.
100 years like this right now. I don't believe this is just all going to fall apart. We should be at least not doing any increases until we know more if everybody's going to be shut down because of COVID.
Aaron,
I mean, this isn't going to fall apart in 1 year. It's been this way for 80 to 100 years.
Aaron, if
And
I
we've
could
already had a
interject.
lot of things fall apart in just in the 2 years that I've been mayor. So do we continue to let things rot to the ground so that then we have to pay 5, 10, 15, 20 times their good? That's the question.
And Mayor,
Do we want to ignore it like our forefathers did so that your kids have the same problems that we have now in 15 years or worse because it's going to cost us a hell of a lot more?
I'm not saying we shouldn't address any of it, but we shouldn't be double, tripling, and quadrupling when we're in the middle of COVID right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a ridiculous asking of an increase.
It's ridiculous that our forefathers never provided the increases that they needed to properly fund the systems that carry our most important thing, which is our public and health and safety. That's what's ridiculous.
No, that's
Mayor,
ridiculous.
if I could interject, Aaron, the letter that was sent out to all the businesses, the 260 plus industrial and commercial, it did show the rate increase on the front page of the letter. And it showed it going for commercial from $2.04 to $5.95. It showed the industrial going from $1.77 to $5.95. So they did know the amount that was the increase was going to be.
Okay, I do have a simple question on this. Why have I not seen this in the commercial news? Were they not given the information, or they did just not say it with these? Did they have all the information with how big of an increase this is? Because I read the commercial news the 3 days it's out, a week right now, and I have not seen it unless I missed it. I don't think I did. But why hasn't it been in there with these rate increases?
There was an article, I believe it was this weekend, with it in there.
How much these increases are?
Right, and Jennifer was at the
Exactly.
meeting today, and she had actually called me last week, wanted to know what I knew about it, and I didn't feel comfortable saying anything till the presentations were made.
Well, listen.
I was in there Saturday telling everybody they're going to double, triple, and quadruple these rates. Because I didn't see it in there. Because I think the general public is just finding out about this mainly through Facebook, which I haven't even read the Facebook thing. But that's how they're finding out about this. I think this would be packed. How's these audience comments going to work when this rate increase is voted on? I mean, because obviously we can't meet, I guess, but this would be packed with people if everybody knows about this and we were voting on double, tripling, and quadrupling things. But they're just finding
a couple
out.
of things. Number one, we could handle them as we have been handling them. You ask people to submit a comment ahead of time. So that's one way it could be handled. The other thing is, in a worst case scenario, we could set up a computer downstairs where individuals could come in and make their comment at the beginning of the meeting. That would also be an option. We would have to limit the number of people that are there, but that could certainly be done where we could have a computer set up on Zoom like this to see them, and they could also provide their feedback. And also for the record, nothing, and just also for the record, I want to be clear, nothing is quadrupling. So to keep saying that, that's just a talking point. Nothing is
You're
quadrupling.
raising an industrial client $475,000 1 year.
Yeah. Okay, Aaron.
If it's not quadrupling, it is like really, really close to quadrupling.
To quadruple the rate for the industry would have to be $7.08. This is $5.70 something per.
$5.95.
$5.95. So no, it's not quadrupling, and it's not close to quadrupling.
Really?
It's your calculator.
And for the record, the largest industrial customer is the prison, and they were notified as well.
And they're also an extreme example.
Yes.
Because they use far, far more water than anyone else this would apply to.
Look, all your points are accurate and well taken, but let's not speculate. I want to call him Bob Iverson. He's been very, very patient. So let's let everybody get in their points. Whether or not we vote to do anything, that's going to be up to the council. And you guys are all welcome to the committee, but yes, I saw the thing in the commercial news, and no, we do not report specifically to my recollection, the exact rate, because nobody knows the exact rate. Depends on what we're going to agree on. But they were all forewarned. We got a big problem. And one other thing, Bob, before you speak. In 1844, we were trying to build brick sewers downtown, and we did. But in order to do that, we couldn't really put into the retirement fund what the police department really needed in 1844. So we let it go for 100 years. So I come on 28 years ago, and now we're trying to catch up on it. And I just don't want another deal like we're sitting here with millions of dollars of debt that we owe, like on the pensions. If we can do anything to knock it down, we ought to try and do something. And I'm going to tell you something. I don't care what, if it's coronavirus, tornadoes, hurricanes, or floods, or whatever. It's never a good time for a rate increase, and I agree. It's certainly not good for me, but we got to do something. So I want everybody's views, and I know the mayor will when we get in full council. So, Bob, this is your chance, but be quick.
Thank you. Where Aaron is correct in a sense is that people, this is the second time I've heard the presentation, and Sam and I have gone back and forth on emails for the last couple of days, and I'm just now starting to vaguely understand some of it. That's some of the problems. It's a very complex thing for a lot of people to get into. I have a couple of questions and or comments. Could we sell bonds instead of upping the fee? Could we put bonds out to do all the sewer improvements? I know that would cost money too. It's not like bonds are free, but it might be less. Have we looked at that? Do you want me to do all my questions at once, or
I can answer that one.
Okay.
I mean, you can do bonds, but you have to show revenue to support the repayment of that bond, which would still require a rate increase from a dedicated revenue source to do so, or it would require you to, basically commit property tax dollars to do that. And I don't think people, Mayor, is that your understanding as well?
I don't think anyone wants their property taxes raised to address their sewer problems. And I can also answer, Vice Mayor, that if we do take out bonds, then you pay substantially more over time. So we're going to, for a $2 million bond that we took out years ago, we paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not a half to $750,000 in interest. So it's something that you do if there's no other option, because you're throwing good money after bad.
The other one is you're looking at a 5-year return on getting things done. If you pushed it back to like 7 or 8 years, you'd be less money you have to spend. And I know full well that it costs a whole lot more when you delay something. But it's like buying a car. If you don't have the money, you have to finance it. The financing is going to cost you a whole lot more in the long run, but that's what you have to do if you don't have the cash on hand. And I'm not sure we have the cash on hand to do it quite as quickly as you want. I fully agree that it needs to be done, and that we've kicked it down the road for years in city government, and it's, the chickens are coming home to roost and all those other cliches. But I agree that we need to perhaps be a little more cautious and a little slower in doing it.
Vice Mayor, I would just add in there, this is not a want. This isn't, we really want to start working on this. We have 10 pump stations that will fail within the next 5 years if we do not do something about this. We have pump stations that are older than Sam and I combined, over 80 years old. Their useful life is 60 to 80 years at most. And these things were made 100 years ago. We literally have brick and mortar sewers. So it's not a matter of, I understand what you're saying, trust me, because I hate this. This whole thing makes me want to throw up. But the bottom line is we have a certain amount of time of things that we know are going to come due that we can't push off. So we push off and we spend $500,000, $1 million, $2 million just buying parts for these things to make sure that the people across the lake can have their waste come away from their homes for the next few years. Then we've not only spent the money that we were going to charge people, but a whole lot more. And we've also possibly had environmental issues, such as Sam described, with stuff discharging into the lake, into our streams, into people's backyards, etc. I mean, we have 10 pump stations over the next 5 years that will likely fail, that we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to repair currently.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, I highlighted a 5-year need for the pump stations. Everything else, and that included, like, that's an ongoing need. The gravity sewers, the force mains, the storm sewers, that's not, we're going to get up to snuff in 5 years. That's how much, if we said we replaced 1 year's worth of material, 1/80th of the system every year in perpetuity, because we'll fix this and it's going to keep deteriorating, right? We're trying to set ourselves up on a sustainable path. So it's not that this is this big lump of money in 5 years and then that's it. This is how much it costs annualized, so it's not really, it's not this concentrated spending, basically.
I am glad to hear that the pump stations are only as old as the mayor and Sam rather than Chairman Foster or me. Those really need to be fixed. Now, even if I went along with the idea of how much to spend, the thing that to me is the stumbling block, and maybe it's just me, is the 5% annual amount that would be increased. I think that's where you get into real problems. That's what happened with the state of Illinois. They do an annual 3% for pensions, and that's where their money goes up and up and up. And I'm on a state pension, so I agree slightly they should be increases, but that just makes the issue worse all the time. The trouble is you take someone's making, spending X amount of money 1 year and you put in 5% the next year, that's not so bad. But then the next year it's 5% on the higher amount, not the original amount. And every year it goes 5% on a higher amount. And that's where it ends up being very difficult for the taxpayers. By the time, 5-10 years down the road, the amount has gained quite a bit from what it was. And that's what, to me, every year, and it's also they do that to make it easier on city councils, let's face it. That way they don't have to come back every year and say, oh, how much should we do? It's automatically 5%, it just goes through. I think city council and city government every year should have the guts to look at that and say, do we need 5% this year? Was the economy really good? Can we get by with 2%? Or even, do we need more than 5%? But every year they should look at, rather than just an easy way to slide another 5% increase through. Yeah. That's my main pet peeve with this. It just seems like it's bad enough to have to do it, but to make it worse every year just compounds the problem.
And can I comment on that, Ricky? Is that
sure?
You mentioned the pension fee for the state, and it's kind of the opposite side of things here, right? If what the state has done with the pension fee would be like if we didn't add enough inflation to this, because we're not going to be meeting our obligations, and the lack of our meeting of obligations is going to grow and grow and grow, which is what we have today. And so if we don't add enough inflation to that, then we're going to be back at you, doing the same thing. The one commitment I will make to you as long as I'm here is that I will be happy to bring this back to you every year. I would suggest that you have an automatic inflation number in there. But that being said, our ordinances require it. The ordinance I'm drafting that has, that I'm finalizing basically that has these rate changes in it will all require that this has to be at least analyzed every year. And I'm happy to provide you with that information. And then you can decide, is this rate getting out of hand? Is it over, do we have more money than what we need? And the whole idea behind, the 4% is really just to meet the cost increase and the population loss. That's where you don't lose ground, based on what our current trends are. And that extra 1%, it just helps us eat into slowly this huge backlog of stuff that we're not building into this initial piece. But, with those annual reviews, if that gets to be more than what we think we need, then we can pull the plug on that. You can pull the plug on the inflation if the population loss changes, if the construction cost index changes. We could do that and present that information to you annually. And I do think that's appropriate. That's something we should look at as a group every year, regardless.
Mayor, can I follow up with what Sam said?
One quick comment on what he just said. There's the part where you put in because of the loss of population each year.
Yes.
Because of that, we need to have more. The reverse of that's true too. We have less people to pay it every year. So rather than being increased, we should be lowering the amount those people pay each year.
Well, that's not necessarily true, because if you have X amount of miles of sewers, as I've showed you, and X amount of operating costs, you've got to generate the money to fund that, regardless of how many people you have. And when you have fewer people, it's going to cost more per person to meet that need than it is with more people. So that's actually working against us, not for us in this case, which is one reason we have got to do everything we can to change that as a community. But, you know, that's not something that we can assume today. That would not be, you know, mathematically what I would recommend, I guess.
Chairman Foster, may I respond? Or
Yeah, go ahead. It's my committee.
Okay, we do have a financial policy that was passed in April of 2012 that specifically says what Sam just said, that we are to review charges every year. It also says that enterprise funds must be self-sustaining. As we know, the sewer fund was receiving from the home rule sales tax 4% from the general fund, which is eliminated with this fee. I mean, that was something that amounted to almost $375,000 in this current year's budget. So that would go away. Of course, yes, we do see the big increase in the sewer fund. One question I did have, Sam, there's a new line item. It says loan repayment EPA SRF program that was budgeted this year at 362. Next year it's at 300,000. What is that?
Yeah, that's actually related to the Northwest Sanitary Sewer Project.
So that's what that is.
That's correct. So we had budgeted it based on, we ended up getting more principal forgiveness than what we anticipated. So that came in better than, you know, anticipated.
Maybe Ashland could make that notation next to that it's a Northwest Sewer Project. So I just saw new highlighted in it, loan repayment. But yeah, but like I say, I mean, we probably need to review our financial policy. I mean, it's every year on every fund we have. That's what's required. That's what was passed in 2012, and we haven't done that in a long, long time.
Yeah, I think it's important. You know, we got to recognize that if you look at this as a percentage of the city budget overall, it's a significant piece. And we owe a lot of attention to the large scale things. And I think a lot of times attention is spent on the lower level, small things. But it's most important that we get the big picture right. And then the small things can filter in below that. So we definitely need to take the time to do that.
And Sam, I went ahead and sent you you and the mayor a copy of an email I received, Tom and I received this afternoon. I'm not going to say the names or anything, but maybe kind of answer some of those questions.
Yep, I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Thanks,
Chairman Poore and Chairman Foster, that we have not revisited this. You know, you all have been on the council with me the entire time, and we have not regularly revisited any of these. Our financial policy, our fees, these are things that our ordinances require, and that's why my team and I are bringing that to you now, because this hasn't been done for so long, Chairman. That's what puts us in this position.
Mayor, as I brought up this morning, I thought there was an automatic. There used to be on the sanitary, but I guess it went away because of.
No, here's the story. It's signed by Eisenhower. It's April 30th, 2012. I have it right here. When we did the report that you're referring to, we said, oh, gee, we got to do something. And we did. We come up with the policy creating the enterprise fund. It's all here. It was all done on 2012. And I was there and I voted for it. And I didn't like the tax increase at all because in those days I don't know on everything on taxes. But I understood what has to be done. So here we are. Scott signed it. You all see it.
Yep.
That's it. And that's the last time we did anything about the sewers. I mean, seriously.
Thanks, Chairman. Yes.
I'd like, Chairman Foster, I'd like to say something. I too have had a lot of calls on this. Of course, you know, Ward 1, we're not a real wealthy ward. And some people, then we have a lot of retired people. And I understand, I try to explain, understand the need for this, I understand now. But, and I know if we don't try to do something now, it's going to get worse later. But I'm for this and I'm not for it. I'm gonna be honest. And I respect Sam for all the work that he does, and I think he's doing a great job. It's just after I listen to the cries of the people, I do understand, and we're getting ready to have an election year, and God only knows what's going to happen. We don't. Coming up, I mean, it's even been talked about taking away the Social Security. What's going to happen if some people, that's all they live on, and all the other medical, your supplemental Medicare insurance, at least mine is, I don't know about everybody else, but anyway, mine just increased, and there's all the other Comcast, everybody's increasing. And situation that we're in, as Alderman Trollian mentioned, with COVID, and no time is a good time. But right now is in time of the history of this United States, that this is a horrible time. This has never happened to this United States as it is now. We don't know when this is over. It's going to get worse or whatever, but they're talking about, even in this state, about closing down some more. It's just sad to think, and like the mayor mentioned, it makes me sick to my stomach to even think about this. Today I've been thinking about it because of the calls. Whew. I'm just frustrated. I'm just gonna be honest. I don't even want to discuss it anymore. I'm so frustrated because because I listen to the cries of these people. Maybe you all don't understand. $29.75 more added to some people's sanitary bill is not going to be easy. And I've listened to these people, and they say, are they going to have late fees added? We can't afford that. What are we going to do? And well, maybe we leave Danville. No, don't leave Danville. That's the worst thing you can do. It's going to make it worse on the rest of us, because you won't be putting in your share. I don't know how to explain to the people that call me. And it's very frustrating. I understand the need. I see it. And I know we have to do it. If we don't do it now, it'll never get done, because we've talked about it. And I think I mentioned in that one meeting that we met, Sam, that I remember Radio Thompson fussing about sewers years ago, about how, especially here in this East End, and some sewers started getting fixed, but they went to the other areas of town and fixed them, and didn't come to this East End and inner city fixing where it needed to be fixed. And now we're talking about redoing the whole town, and we know it needs to be done, but my gosh, if we can talk about it now, but it's going to put a hurt on a lot of people. That's all I can say. I know we have to do it. I understand that part, but it's going to put a hurt on a lot of people. That right now, I'm talking with my obstetrician. I have a medication I have to have is $247 a month. I can't afford that every month for eye drops. That's just for 30 days. I cannot afford it. And not only me, but I know other people, they're weighing on what they can afford to pay for their medication, for their prescriptions. We know that the cost of food is going up because of COVID. That's another expense. You know, some people said, lady said the other day to me at the grocery store, well, I used to get ground beef because that was the cheapest I could get. But she said, I can't even afford that now. She said, I only get it, she said, about once a month. My children don't eat hamburgers anymore. And that's sad to hear in this community. So I understand. I just had to let that out, because we've got to weigh everything. And right now is not a good time. I know we may be hurting ourselves to talk about it in another year, but I don't know. Maybe some people can't afford to do this, but I listen to the cries of the people that called me, and it touched my heart, and it's sad. I hate to see them like that.
Alderman Brown, you brought up something that I think is very important that I want to clarify. Unfortunately, the commercial news used some wording in a Facebook post today, which was very inaccurate. What they said was that people were going to be charged $29.75 more a month.
Right.
That is completely inaccurate, as you know.
I understand, and I did try to.
I just want to make sure that the people understand, though, because your point is taken. Some of the calls that I got were saying, Mayor, I can't afford $29.75 more a month. It's not $29.75 more. The average person on their sewer bill pays $16.10 a month. So for the average person, this will be $13.65 more a month. It would be $13.65 per month. But I know when you're struggling to pay for everything else, that's a lot. But I also know the amount of calls that I got as a Ward 1 alderman, the people having sewer and other things backing up into their home every time it rained. I think Alderman Brown, I know you even had some concerns with that. And the problem is I think people have given up. They've stopped even calling us when they have questions or problems like that because they think it's never going to get done. And quite honestly, although I know $13 more a month would be a hardship for a lot of folks, I think it's a harder thing to live without the hope that you're ever going to live in your home and not have to have sewer in your house every time it rains.
Right.
So when you say your heart cries, you hear the heart cries of the people. I understand because I do too. This makes me literally sick. But I also hear the heart cries, and I remember the heart cries that I got as an alderman and that I get now as mayor, not just from Ward 1, but from across the whole city. Every time there's any kind of rain event and people are having these issues, and they shouldn't have to be hopeless.
I understand. I get water in my basement. You've heard me fuss about that.
Yes, ma'am.
But
I understand what you're saying about the cries.
That's the lesser of two evils, I guess. I don't know. It just that I just listened to the people today, and I just had to. Like I said, it made my heart very heavy today because I know what they're saying is true. They don't want water in their basements. They don't want water in their yard. They don't want sewage in their basements either. They understand that part. Just try to reach a happy medium, I guess. It's just sad that we're at this point, at this time.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, Sharon, Ms. Pickerson.
The people that I talked to today, they were under the impression it would be raised $29.75. So I think this is very bad for us because that got out to the news and that's not what it's going to be raised.
Right.
And here's the problem, Alderman Pickering. I've called the reporter that attended today. That was at this point ago, almost 10 hours ago. Many people have posted on the Facebook page saying that it's wrong and they still haven't corrected it, which is very problematic.
Thank you.
Like I told you before, we're just a microcosm of the macrocosm. That's Washington. That's what the news media tells what they want to say. They don't always put the truth. I know it's a shock to most of you, but I figured that out about 50 years ago.
Well, Chairman, Jennifer, I just want to say Mrs. Bailey is normally very good at reporting what goes on.
Yeah.
So she may have been in a hurry and just misused a word, but the problem is the commercial news very much ought to correct what they have stated incorrectly because it's caused a lot of unnecessary stress, panic, and fear. And I know for me, Alderman Brown, a lot of the fear and panic that I heard was people think it was going up that much. But I told them that it was only going to go up on average for them $13. They didn't like it, but that didn't make them as sick as it's making you and I to ask them.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I said, I understand because I don't want water in my basement, but I just like I said, I understand them because it includes me when we make these decisions and vote on these things. But I know some of these people are really, really scuffling just to eat every day. And
yeah, Alderman Brown.
This went up $10, it would hurt.
Yeah, Alderman Brown, I tell you, when we met earlier on this, we had an excellent meeting. There was 5 or 6 of us there. No, I'm talking about when I met with the mayor and Mr. Cohen and Mike and I, and there were other people. Our public service director was there. And we spent a good half an hour, but probably a 3-hour meeting talking about the effect it has on the poor people that just can't afford it. We talked about the possibility, or Mr. Iverson, of going to bonds. Long discussions. We talked about there's no end to some things we can do. But here's what I told her: we just have to find some way to do something good for this city that would alleviate that problem, the one we have now, Mr. Cole's problem, and there's an Alva's problem, because it is our problem. We have
everybody.
But we have to do something to help the people alleviate themselves somewhere else. We have to give it back when we can give it back. If things go well in the casino, we can take a look at some of the things, and we keep in mind the people that can least afford it are going to have the first attention. You see, that's why I always want to give the.
I understand all that, Alderman Foster.
It's not like it's not being considered.
Oh
boy, we consider it, and we take it home tonight, and we worry about it.
I know it. I met with Sam and all, and I understand we need this, and it's not because Sam had to engineer this, so to speak. He had to. I mean, that's the job. And he's doing fine at. It just when I listen to the cries of these people is what and I understand is what I'm saying. So. And
the people are right, but they shouldn't go to Facebook for their news to start off with. If they got questions, they can call their alderman, and we're going to have to tell them the truth.
Right.
Chairman Foster, I believe I see Alderman Bouchard has his hand up.
Yeah, if I may say something, several years ago, I came to town and with McLean, as most of you know, and at the time, General Motors had shut down and was leaving town. It almost completely shut down. Valmont and
Heister,
they were all phasing out, and the doom and gloom of talk around town was just devastating. But it got better, and as far as this issue we're discussing right now, there is no good time to I guess do this and discuss this issue. It's devastating. It's just like a monster at the end of a tunnel that we're facing, and something has to be done, and it's not a very popular situation right now that we're in, but it has to be addressed. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Chairman. It appears that the Alderman Trollia wishes to be acknowledged as well.
Yeah, my hand's just not working. Go ahead,
okay,
Aaron.
Let's clarify this. Okay, if water's getting in the basement, it's not because of the city sewer backing up like 99% of the time. If it's sewage getting in the basement, it's almost 99% of the time between the street and the house. That is that house's personal line. I've only had like maybe twice where city sewer backed up and got into my house. The line between the house and the street is the residential person's. That's their line. You got to call Clean Line to get that out. That's still going to fail or whatever. That's not city sewer backing up. And most of the water coming in the basement is through the walls. It doesn't come back up through the sewer. That just doesn't. Yeah. I mean, I had no calls on people getting sewage in their basement as an alderman. I've got 0 on this.
Well, that's not necessarily. Sometimes your point is correct, Aaron. Sometimes it is just the sewer lateral that has an issue, from the house. Sometimes it is the walls, but in many cases around town, it literally is the sanitary sewers of the city that are overwhelmed with stormwater and groundwater, and they back up into homes. And that tends to be in the lower lying areas. It tends to be in certain neighborhoods, and that just have their sewers are way farther gone than others. Even out in the Eastgate area, like that's not even that old that's 40 some years old, and the sewers aren't backing up in basements, but they're backing up and they're surcharging in, wet weather because we have a lot of leakage in the lines, and, we don't want it to get to the point where that happens. So, it is very case by case as far as that goes. And, very much, kind of all over the place. In some neighborhoods, the surcharge doesn't happen. It doesn't back up in the basements in some neighborhoods. It floods the streets or it floods the creeks or, something like that. And it's not directly, they're not feeling that. And I think there is a lot of truth to the statement, though, that people have given up. And they quit calling, like literally even city workers that work here quit calling about sewer backups because it never got done. And they just got accustomed to that's the way it's going to be. And regardless of what's decided, I respect all you guys for considering this, and I think this is absolutely necessary. And it's the very people that need it the most that can't afford it, the ones that I want to do it for, right? They don't deserve to live like that. Nobody does. And I want to show that we need to show them that somebody believes in them enough to do this and to fix this and to hear their problems. And if we let it go, one, we've pitched the rate will be higher later, which is absolutely true, right? It's only going to get worse now. The other alternative is that we don't do it and it gets privatized somewhere down the road. And I don't know that that's more cost effective than what we can do for the citizens ourselves. In some cases it may be, in many cases it's not. And from what I've seen, likely their rates would be substantially higher privatized than what they are, than what we're suggesting. So I don't know that definitively, but that would be my general thoughts. So.
Well, we have 4 people here from Public Works. So Public Works is going to hear it. Okay. Now let's just think. What is the rush? Here's the rush. We'd like to be able to put something in the budget. When do we vote on the budget? What's our last day we can do that? I think everybody can be informed. We've already talked about meeting with business. You already made an effort. We talked about having a public forum. These are some of the things Mike and I met before. So there's a number of things we can do, but I think we need to add something prepared. Everybody's going to hear this by now. We're going to hear from the public, and they will write 3-minute phone calls or 3-minute letters or whatever they want to do. And yeah, I get my calls, and Trogley is right about one thing. I don't get a whole lot of backups, but I do, and we're 600 foot or better elevation up here, but usually it's after 2.5 to 3 inch rain. That's another problem. The storm sewers are a big problem. During the well, that we got storm sewers that are tied into the sanitary. This shouldn't be. We're trying to alleviate that problem out smoking and everything. But the point is, the biggest problem is we get a lot of water in Danville, and I think we're going to start getting more water. And Michael, you told me about the water that runs down there at the river. It's unbelievable. You wouldn't want to be standing there after a thunderstorm because it comes out of there like you could drive a Mack truck in that hole that it comes out of. So all I can say is we got to let everybody get their views in, see what the public wants to say. But I just wish everybody would understand what the issue really is, because the alternative is not very pleasant either. So I don't care how long you want to postpone it, but sooner or later it has to be addressed. It's just like the pension. So I'm open to calling anybody who hasn't talked. I can't believe it.
Thanks, Chairman. It looks like Alderman Pickering would like to say something.
Yeah, she's got her hand up. The one I can see.
I would just like to say something to Alderman Trolia. I would like you to come out next bad rain we have out here and look. Just the opposite of evidently what you have in your area, but we have a lot of problems. A lot of problems.
Well, I literally own like 100 houses out there. They don't call me that these backing up. I mean, they would call me if there was sewage throughout the whole basement.
We have surges on Cleveland Street. Anytime we have a major rain, it's awful.
Mm-hmm.
I will show you pictures. I have pictures. I have pictures of my basement, what it looks like. And I have pictures on Cleveland Street, what it looks like. So you come out and I'll show you.
Okay. Well, I mean, are you talking about the street or the basement?
Both.
Okay. Now street, I don't know, but I mean, basement, I don't get the calls anyway.
Well, maybe they stopped calling you like they stopped calling us. I don't know. That could.
Well, I mean, I do get calls, but it's always my sewer line from the house to the street, not the city sewer line.
Right. Gotcha. It appears, Chairman, that Vice Mayor Iverson wishes to be acknowledged.
Yeah, I think we haven't talked enough probably about always emphasizing the sewer. The storm water system too is as big a problem, maybe bigger problem, because there's a few places in town where sewage is a major issue. The stormwater is all over the city. There's places that get in that. Also, the other one we haven't talked about very much, we've all saying how it will affect individual homeowners, and it will. We haven't talked about the businesses. The businesses, the commercials, and the industrials are getting a big increase, and businesses are having a iffy time right now, not just here, everywhere. So I worry about them as well. But when you talk about the thing, and mainly I want you to remember storm, drains out. I see a lot more result of that than I do as sewers.
Vice Mayor, yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I actually probably receive more calls about that than I do sewers. The sewer ones are just a little bit more intense because it smells a little different, you know, so. But your point is well taken. I mean, look at what we're doing on Harrison Street. We had to install a lot of drainage in there, a lot of stormwater sewer to keep businesses from downtown from flooding. So, I mean, it does directly impact businesses as well. It's not just people. It impacts everyone on every level throughout the entire city, whether you're rich or poor, whether you're a resident or a business. You're absolutely right, Vice Mayor. It truly affects everyone.
Mm-hmm. Alderman Stone, what about you? I saw your mind up.
Well, let me say this. Aaron has a good point about how all the backups are on his property, on his line. And Sam also has a great point about how all the infiltration in our sewers causes a lot of the backups because the sewer just floods, and the sewers take on a tremendous amount of water. Go down to the sanitary district during any rainstorm, and you'll see them, oh man, it's just coming in like crazy. Well, approximately, and this is several studies have been done on this, but approximately 10% of that infiltration water comes from our sewers, our public sewers. About 10% of it comes from manholes, and the other 80% comes from that line that Aaron was talking about. Those lines, if you go out and you dig them up, they're made of Orangeburg pipes. They're made of, they got leaky joints on them like crazy. They surcharge our sewers tremendously. Just those pipes there. So, there's a lot that we need to look at, and there's a whole nother sewer system out there that we're not talking about that is causing us a tremendous adversarial impact, okay? So that's another thing we need to look at. We need to look at inspection on those lines, and we need to look at replacing those lines or lining them. A lot of communities have taken to doing that. So that's my 2 cents.
So your point is well taken, and a lot of what Sam is proposing is getting things lined before they get so bad that they can't be, because it's a fifth of the expense.
Well, that sewer line that goes from the house to the public sewer, that's where a significant amount of our water comes from when we have flooding conditions in the sewer itself.
Okay.
Now you have to consider that if that's not going into the sanitary sewer, well, it's going to be on the street somewhere. So, the problem just gets moved a little bit when you fix it like that. So you need comprehensive planning on these things.
Yeah.
So doing the storm sewers would be a big asset for us.
Alderman O'Kane, you haven't spoken. Would you like to tell us what your ideas are? Any approach to this? Don't forget to unmute yourself.
You're unmuted now. Oh, we got you.
I don't have him muted.
Alderman O'Kane, we can't hear you. I think it's because of your headphones.
Not necessarily.
You may not have him plugged in.
He's not turned on, maybe on permissions.
Can't hear you.
No, we still can't hear you.
Well, he may be muted on the other end, and I don't have access to that. So somebody here does.
Well, he's unmuted on mine.
There, we can hear you now. Go ahead. I think we heard you. Well, I
that
heard
was Mike 4, I think.
Okay, you're right. I think you're right, Alderman.
No, he's blocked
That
out.
was Mike O'Kane.
Well, he needs to unplug his headphone because that happened to me. My computer wouldn't work when I had the headphones on.
Well, I don't think that's a problem. He's probably muted down here on our end, and IT's not there. The only host we have is Ricky, and he doesn't know how to do it right there, right now.
No, IT is here. He's not muted on his, he's not muted.
Okay, maybe we can straighten you out if IT's still around there. In the meantime, does anybody else want to put in here again? Because remember, we're not, but this is a discussion. It's a presentation on the sewer and we've heard a lot of views on it, and we can move on because there's going to be a lot more to be said, and that will be said. Mike's group, I'm sure that Mike, if he hears me, is going to be answering to his public works as well. And so I just, Mayor, when do we have to vote on the budget? That's the question.
I believe it's the first Tuesday in December. But if we are not including this in the budget, then Ashland and I, especially Ashland, need time to rework the budget so that it can be restated for final consideration, because you guys have to have ahead of time what it is that we're voting on.
Mayor, we need to find $4 million, basically.
That's Chairman Ford, that's exactly it, unfortunately.
So we will vote on this on the 3rd, right? Or at least that's the plan at this moment.
Yeah, yes, sir. That is correct.
Level overview, just real quick. It's come up a couple times. So obviously on the agenda for this evening, I would answer any questions. I plan on rolling out a second draft of the budget next city council meeting, November 3rd. We've had some revenue updates. I'm meeting with Public Works Department, and we're revamping the Harrison Park original budget, and just a few other commercial insurance. There's a few other tweaks that have come in. During those first 2 weeks of November, after you approve it at City Council, we're having open enrollment. So then after open enrollment concludes, I'll be updating that draft again, and you'll get a final 3rd draft on December 1st. And that will be the draft that you'll be voting on. So just kind of a high level overview of what the plan is for the levy and the budget. And we're required to file our levy and budget with the county clerk. I have on my calendar the 22nd of December. So that's kind of the pressure on the timeline. I'm not saying we've never not met that timeline before, but it is state statute. So I'm just trying to stick with that the best I can, because if it gets pushed back, it pushes other things that I do back as well. So
the other thing, Chairman Foster, that I apologize, I meant to reach out to you about, and Chairman Core, about this beforehand. Vice Mayor Iverson had reached out to me about the desire to have, right now we've been at it, a lot of times at this point, we've been at it 2 hours. At this point, we're close to 3 hours now, and people are a little tired. I know a lot of you think the budget is great, and I do too. Ashland and all of the department heads have done a fantastic job. But he was hoping that we could have some more discussion about the actual budget that just focused on the budget. So I will be sending you and the media an invitation tomorrow for next Thursday evening at 5 o'clock. So that's next Thursday evening, November 5th at 5 o'clock. We will have a budget study session. Please come with any questions that you have ready. And Ashland and I will be prepared. We will send out, Agnell didn't know this, but I'll ask him to set up a meeting for us so that we can accommodate everyone, and that way we have some more time to focus just on the budget itself.
Okay, let's just hear from one more. Mr. Pashar, Alderman, I think you had your hand up. We're trying to get my attention. Jim, did you want to speak? Maybe you can't hear us.
Oh, Alderman Pashar, can you hear us, sir?
No, sir, I don't have a question. No comment.
Okay.
Right, thank you. I don't know if Alderman McMahon had a chance to, your Vice Chairman McMahon had a chance, Chairman Foster?
I think everybody's talked. If you want to, we can move on down to discussion of the levy. That's next.
Vice Chairman, did you have any comments that you wanted to make at this time?
No, not at this time. I'm just kind of listening.
Go ahead, Sharon. I'm sorry.
Just kind of listening. Yeah, I don't have any comments at this time.
Thank you. Sam, do you have a comment?
Yes, I do. I would just request, I've got to finalize the ordinance that you all will see next Tuesday. So I would please contact me with any specific questions or concerns sooner than later, so that I can consider all that in drafting that, and we can work through something to arrive at something that will be what you all expect, or to the best of our ability. At least let us consider your thoughts and opinions in doing so, please. So,
Chairman, it's all yours, Chairman Foster.
Mayor, I take that back. I do have a question. One of the things that did concern me, of course, everything concerns me, raising something during COVID. We talked about that previously. But one of the things that did concern me was the automatic 5% increase every year.
Thank you.
I really don't like that at all. I think we need to review. We never know how things are going to go. Somebody mentioned that, hey, the casino might do well, and we could, use some of those funds, because that's a lot. So, increasing is one thing. I think we have to make it very clear to the people that it's going to be a $12 or $13 increase and not a $29 increase. But yeah, I really do not like the 5% automatic increase each year.
I agree with you on that. That kind of bothered me also.
Okay. So we've heard from her. We've heard from everybody.
Thanks, Vice Chairman.
Okay. If everybody's agreed, we'll go to item 10. We have a discussion of the tax levy and the budget. I don't know if there's anything more to add, but go ahead on that if you will. Ms. Massey.
Does anyone have any questions for Ashlyn or I? As I said, again, we will meet via Zoom, and we'll make sure that that's available to the public to observe about the fiscal. We'll have a budget study session next Thursday at 5 p.m. for anyone who's available. Hope to see you there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you. No closed session items information anymore on that. That's where we are. Getting items information.
Chairman, if I may, I just want to say that I really appreciate everyone's thoughtful discussion and consideration on this. This is not an easy task. Quite frankly, if this was an easy task, they would have fixed it before I was born. However, since they didn't, there's no time like the present, So I just really thank you all. Thank Sam and Dave Rui and Ashlyn for all of your, and Director Carpenter for all of your work on this. This is not an easy decision. But as I promised you, I'll always do what I can to lead us in the right direction, even when it's hard. So I just thank you all very much for your consideration. This is not an easy task.
I have one other thing I'd like to say. Just want to say this to Sam. Don't think I was beating up on you, but I just, like I say, whatever the people bring to me, I've got to bring it. When it touches me, I have to express how it makes me feel as well. But don't think I was beating up on you.
Makes me feel better that you're passionate about it. If you were dead about it,
I tried to say that because I understand the situation. So,
yeah.
Alderman Brown, I like that picture right over your right shoulder.
oh, I love it.
Yeah, he's the man.
Thank you, Mike.
Before we close, I wanted to say that up until we got to this point, I was extremely impressed with everybody's report. It looks to me like that everybody's been very busy. There are a lot of people under stress and they're working from home. You all know that. Mayor, you've done a good job of keeping everything spinning down there, and things are spinning well. Somehow or other, I feel like it's going to work out okay for the people for Danville. Our problems, I think we got a good crew here, and I just think we have to thank the mayor and the people that are directly involved, and all you busy people that reported tonight. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate your support. The bottom line is we can't do it if we aren't all in this together. So thank you.
Shall we adjourn? Maybe
I will move to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, really? I don't have a gavel, but the fire chief does have one. Would you please wrap your desk over there, and then we'll go. All right, that's it. All in favor of getting out of here? Say aye.
Aye.
I
Have
don't
a
hear
great
any
week,
nays.
everybody.
Everyone have a great night.
Stay safe.
Night, everybody.
Okay.